All good seasons start at Daytona, and it seems this rings true even on the road course side. Today, it is not the most prestigious race in the IMSA Championship, in this case VSCA SportsCar Championship, the Daytona 24, but it serves as a solid prelude as to what we can expect to see 7 days from now. Welcome back to the VSCA SportsCar Championship, to Green Flying TV, and to the Roar before the 24. My name is Remble, alongside Kenneth Bueno. We are bringing you all of racing action from start to finish for tonight's opening qualifying race for the McConey Setup Shops Daytona 24 in just 1 week's time. Kenneth, 2 hours and 40 minutes about to kick off here this afternoon, and what a night what an afternoon this one is expected to be here, as you've got over 50 cars ready to take to the world center of racing to duke it out to see who starts where in the longest race of the year.
Nolan, this is a stacked field, no doubt and no question. There's a lot of anxiety when it comes down to going to the starting grid and beginning that 24-hour race right here at the Daytona International Speedway, but this race may have similar implications and similar levels of stress. This will decide the qualifying order for that big-time race next week on January 10th. So I'd imagine there's so much more at stake here with the teams and the drivers. Also note, this is a good amount of time for these guys to get together, create a mesh of a team that'll be cohesive enough to take those 24 hours by storm and win that race next week.
It's, of course, a critical race for a lot of drivers here. This is the time for drivers to shake off the dust and brush off the cobwebs from the off-season and get themselves back into shape. You have returning champions. You have new rookies entering this year. And in the words of Kyle Berger from the VSCA administration, this season anticipated to be one of VSCA's finest here this afternoon. New procedures are going to be put to the test here this afternoon with some brand new full course yellow procedures. That is going to create quite the shakeup as well over the course of this race. But you look at the season schedule, at least leading into August. It, of course, starts off today and then next week for the McConey Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona. The first proper sprint points race of the season takes place at the Long Beach Street Circuit on February 7th. And at the end of the month, the second longest race of the year, the Monster Energy 12 Hours of Sebring, as we swing back down to Florida. So it's a swing from east to west to east, but still staying in sunny states throughout the opening months of this series.
And look at those diverse set of tracks from Long Beach, Sebring, Laguna Seca. Those first 3 months, including next week's opener at Daytona here, it's going to be a diverse challenge. Lots of different tracks with rough surfaces, different types of corners. I mean, it's such a unique set of the schedule. And that's really going to be important. It's not that big of a championship. You have these long races, but it's only about 8 or so events, and maybe 10 or so events, give and take, with the Roar before the 24 happening this afternoon. So you really got to account for a sprint of a championship that the drivers are going to have to get used to through these long races. And honestly, this may be the first step, this Roar before the 24, to get that team working well together. And when you have a good qualifying order for the 24 hours in Daytona, things change very quickly. Yes, we've seen that happen in other 24-hour races in real life and on the sim before, but starting up front, that is worth very much something, and the drivers chasing that today.
14 kilometers an hour of winds blowing towards the southeast, and that means that drivers are going to be getting themselves quite a bit of a headwind coming down the back straightaway into the Le Mans chicane, and a lot of tailwind heading down into turn 1 off of NASCAR 4, and that's going to create for a lot of excitement as well, right? Those winds can obviously catch drivers out, especially for the GTP runners, with those cars already on the knife's edge of control just to maintain their pace. So turn 1 could be exciting here this afternoon, especially in your prototype field.
And remember, with the iRacing update that happened several months ago, new tire updates came across GTP and the GT Pro and AM classes, across LMP2 as well. So you have so much of that factoring in. You have the tailwind going into turn 1 on the opening start to a very dangerous left-hand corner where we've seen tons of chaos. Drivers are just packing it in there like sardines, coupled with the tire updates where these rubbers are very cold. They're going to be very lack of grip. It's going to be tough to find any sort of cornering in the first few laps, and then when you get it warmed up, it's all good. But first lap is going to be very treacherous. I'd imagine the drivers are going to tether that on the very edge of control, but going to be very careful as well. It's going to be fun to watch.
And all of that takes us to the end of the warm-up session. With that, it's time to see who's going to start where for the Roar before the 24th, the qualifying race about to get underway. Starting on pole position here this afternoon in GTP, it's Ollie Schwartz for RevLab Competizione. He is alongside JD Daniel for Pack Sim Sport, down in number 2, less than a quarter of a second off of the pole time. Row 2 on the GTP grid, it's Seth Neufeld for BMW M-Team TSR GTP. He is alongside Thiago Mello for Lion GP, ex-Bravo Snow, down in that 4th place run. Row number 3 on the grid, it's Sergi Lazar for VSR Competizione Bianco alongside Alvaro Martinez for World of Sim Racing Team. Row 4 on the grid, it's Selena Ward for Wastegate Racing alongside Philippe Silvera for BMW M-Team Delta Racing. Top 10 closed out by Andre Vitor Diaz for BMW M-Team Delta Racing alongside Mark Scherschel for Albrecht Motorsports. And then rounding out the 12-car GTV grid this afternoon, it's Jeremy Carter for V1M alongside Brandon Clark for Ayers Racing. And, well, Kenneth, you got the LMP2s.
And 13th on back is where the LMP2 class begins. Starting with Alfonso Reyes, driving the RTR RIC Team Racing 2 machine. They'll line up on pole for the LMP2 class. Kyle Allen going to take the green flag for 1M in the 11 machine. That's on the outside, 14th place. Behind that, Ricardo Anselmo, Grow Racing Team Blue, going to take the green from 3rd on the LMP2 grid. And 4th place, Track Limited Sim Racing Thunderbolt with Gregory Mines behind the wheel. That black and red LMP2 going to be firing off to turn 1 alongside the rest of the field. Inside the top 5, a pair of the same team. Dominic Eisenberg driving the twin-turn SRV by Rebecca Bornheim car, the number 23 machine, and the fellow teammate in the 22, Adam Joseph Malahot, going to be driving behind the wheel of the number 22 machine in 18th overall and 6th in the class. Carter Blitz for the Flight Level Racing 757 machine. They're going to be on the inside of the next row. Monarch Racing Team has Victor Pita on the outside in 8th place. That's row number 4 to the grid. And then the final LMP2 class cars, Matthew J. Luke for Fury Simsport LMP and Marcus Shung, the 512 rescue skill by WMS. We got word from Race Control. Marcus Shung and that 512 team will have to start from the pits due to violations pre-race.
GT Pro is headed on up here this afternoon by Tyler Renner for Blanco Motor with the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 making its debut here on Green Flag TV alongside Tomas Silva for Virtual Power Sim Racing. The Porsche 911 GT3, very familiar car here from the 2024 campaign for VSCA. Row 2 on the grid for GT Pro, it's the Acura, another car making its first time appearance here on Green Flag TV. Carlos Guilmao for VSR Competizione and Nero alongside Saul Sanchez Flores, a World of Sim Racing Team. Row 3 on the grid, Vincent Herbier for Sim City Racing. He is alongside Nuno Magalhaes for Grow Racing Team White, with the likes of the next people down going to be that of Jose Barbosa for RTR Rick's Team Racing alongside Manuel Mayer for Matco Fisher Motorsports. Top 10 closed out by Gonzalo Light for Epic Vans Pulsar Esports Team alongside Sam Gunstone for iRacing Today Motorsports VSCA. 11th and 12th, row 6, it's Travis Linscomb Hatfield for Tulamatre Racing alongside Josh Gowen for Gowen Racing. 13th and 14th, row 7, it's Jan Zalakias for Rossi Spatulas Racing VSCA alongside Stefan Olbs for Unitronic Fisher Motorsports. Row 8 then, Jeremy Littleton for Vulture Motorsports Pro alongside Chris Schreiber for Double Stint Racing. And then the GTMs to close out the grid.
Starts with Giannis Costantini, the Daily Car Market Aries Racing machine, starting first in the GTM class. And Ryan Huff, the SRN TFR Alliance team, the 75 in that Mercedes GT3 machine, looking to have a bit of that downforce in turn 1 to begin. Smail Labe in the Blocko Motor AM car, the 283 starts in 3rd. And on the outside, Richard A. Bell for the SRN Motorsports Orange, going to be on the outside there. Will Robertson for Wastegate Racing has his number 33 car on the inside and P5 for the GTM class. And Michael Adamczyk for the Flight Level Racing Team, the 747. We see the Flight Level 757, 747 aiming at the queen of the sky is going to be the queen of this race, hopefully. Lucas Santos, Vulture Motorsports, has the inside of the next row in 7th. And Samuel Hoff going to be taking the green for the Superstar Racing Team in the 17 car. Kevin Smith for Intercom Fisher Motorsport lines it up 9th. Jonathan Duncan taking the green for Austin the Estes Racing, the 83 car, going to be bouncing through the Le Mans chicane several times today, looking for the win, and of course a good qualifying spot. Connor Botting for Go Win Racing, the other Go Win machine, and the 19 machine going to be 11th. Garrett Spence for BMW M Team TSR GTM on the outside in 12th position. Rich Wright, SWF Motorsports, they'll line up in 13th in the 94. Michael James, SportsCar Racing Team in yellow. We'll be having Michael James there in the number 4 on the outside in 14th place. And then the final car of the GTM group, Christopher Limprecht for the Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing Group, 515 all the way at the back. I believe he also got a pre-race penalty starting on pit road.
Tough break for a few drivers early on. You, of course, have the number 8 of Aris Racing, who is going to have to not only start this race from the pits, but he is also going to have to take a drive-through penalty for those pre-race violations. Same for the number 2 machine in your, supposedly the GTP machine. That would, of course, be No Limit Sim Racing Academy, who also is going to need to likely find himself down. And in fact, it has been a disqualification for tech inspection, as a matter of fact, for that number 53 car. So that's going to mean that he is down and out early on. A devastating start to the season then for No Limits Racing Spatula. And that is a result of registering with the wrong car number for this race, Kenneth. They were supposed to be in the number 2. They registered as 53. But that'll bite you. It gets a couple drivers every year.
It does. It's such a small detail, but then when you realize you made the mistake, you're like, oh boy, I made the mistake. And that's kind of a big deal when you have all these different cars, race control, and the system is so rigid. They want everybody to have the right number. They want everybody to be in the right fit, and that makes a total bunch of sense. When you're starting a new season, you have to build these new rosters and get everybody together for what is going to be a very long and competitive season. And it's tough for those drivers because they can't participate in a big-time race in which they're going to have a lot of practice. And you know, we talk about practice solo with your teammates in a group of 4, maybe 5 cars, maybe a bit of less than that, a tight-knit group that's able to practice on the speedway. It's so different from when you have all these cars out there on the track. And even if it's for a bit under 3 hours, you have a lot of time to prepare for what the race may be like, for what the competition shapes up to be like. Any drivers and any teams you can look out and say, hey, they might be a threat to be warranted when the race begins the following week, or maybe there's some things that we learned working together as a team that we can file in and refine for the main race the following week. So to have that bit of a hiccup to begin and being disqualified for this first qualifying race, you know, it doesn't seem much from the grander scale of things. You can compete in the main championship next week. However, you're going to miss a lot of seat time that comes in from running this Roar Before the 24.
Real quick before we get this race underway, just want to address something. We right now have 90 concurrent viewers in the Roar Before the 24 broadcast. Make that now 91. That is a new Green Flag TV record, and this race has not even begun. So a big thank you and a welcome on board to everybody, whether you're returning for the 2024 season or jumping in on board for the new viewers here this afternoon. We are happy to have you on board with us here for what should be a stellar afternoon of racing for the next 2 hours and 40 minutes. The GT cars have been sorted, as have the GTMs, and that means, Kenneth, we should be set to go green this time by.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. You don't see them double file yet. They are free to weave, warm up the tires as much as they like. Race control told the drivers in the meeting right before the green flag is going to come out here that after the Le Mans chicane, that final corner is where everyone is able to double up. All the GTP, LMP2, GT Pro, and AM classes can start to double file up together, be in that left-right double configuration, and then we'll take the green in just a matter of time. It's going to be so exciting, though, to see Nolan, these drivers take this track for the first time in 2026, not because they haven't driven this configuration before, just because of the newness of a brand season, just all the ideas, all the anticipations, all the expectations that can come in with a brand new campaign between drivers that have been here before or drivers that are here for the very first time. This is the benchmark you're setting here. This is the few moments where you strap in that sim racing scene and say, hey, let's go. It's time to fully lock in for a race that will really take us to a good start in the 2026 Daytona 24 next week. And there they are, double filed. It's going to be so much fun. Remember, tailwind in turn 1, cold tire is going to be dangerous. Going to be exciting to see how the drivers take it.
We're happy as always that everybody here is joining us for the qualifying race in the Roar Before the 24 for the VSCA SportsCar Championship in 2026. The first race from Daytona International Speedway, as the iRacing pace car going to make its sharp left-hand turn down and into pit road. And with that, time to get a new season underway. The green flag is in the air in the United Rentals restart zone, and already it's a good getaway from the likes of J.D. Daniel firing off towards turn numbers 1 for the GTP field. tucking down to the opening couple of corners. No problem so far in the brake zones for the GTPs. LMP2s right behind them are going to just manage to tuck in line before the entrance of turn number 1, and they are clean through the SS.
I mean, almost saw a bit of chaos there at the back end of that GTP field. It was Andre Victor Diaz from the BMW M Team Delta Racing car almost made contact with one of the fellow teammates going into that first little chicane off of turn 1. There's the GT Pro and Amfield coming into the first corner for the first time. Glauco Motore and Tyler Redden, the number 183, going to take the lead into turn 1. Remember, this is at the East Horseshoe, the International Horseshoe, and one of the cars in the wall already in the first corner.
Couple of cars going around. In fact, one of those is the Fisher Motorsports machine. Got one of the Mercedes going around as well. That's that I believe is one of the AM cars. That's SRM Motorsports Orange, who's got a broken suspension. Also caught up one of the Ferraris involved in this one. And this is a big mess right at the get-go. On top of that, you've also now got a car that's going to be forced to tow. We've got a full course yellow already, not even half a lap into this race.
And Nolan, that was the exact same point of the racetrack in which the two GTP cars almost made contact and caused trouble, where those GT AM cars, GT Pro cars got together and instead made the trouble off of what is technically turns 2 and 3. It's right where the pit road is coming to an end. There's a wall on the left side, but there's a little chicane. It's very narrow, and it doesn't hit you until you realize you're already there side by side. It's exactly what happened with the Steven Nobis car, the Unitronic Fisher Motorsports machine, and then Josh Gowen for Gowen Racing, as there's one of the GTPs on pit road. Heavy damage after the first lap scuffle.
And this is Daniel Perez Santiago for Red La Competizione. This is what I was going to address for that massive pileup in the GT field. He was missing the rear wing of that car before he even left pit road.
Wow, that is unbelievable. I mean, that's not the way you want to start, obviously, but again, you have so many cars congested in these first few corners, and you obviously want to get a good start. You're on cold tires. The grip is not exactly where you always want it to be over a long green flag run. So to have that happen already for the 554 is just a bit of a heartbreak. I mean, the good thing is that for Daniel Perez Santiago and that Red Lab Competizione team, they have a lot of time. They can still repair this car. There's still life in them, but there was no rear wing on this race car as it was coming off of pit road. So you got to see exactly what happened there to cause any trouble. Oh, it was just a simple slip up in the exit of that corner. But it's really turn 1. But at the pit lane exit, and again, a dangerous blend when you have this entire GT class starting to get together. And then just as I mentioned, the contact in the corner, not only for the GTP car, who ends up just in the middle of the group, but then that Fisher Motorsports machine and the Gowen Racing entry, the 18, just getting tagged along together, and the mess just continues at that point off of turn 1.
That's the Stefan Knowles from the Unitronic Fisher Motorsports, the first car that went around. We'll try to get a proper look on what happened here coming around through turn numbers 1 and 2 in this deal. And there you saw one of the LMP2s going off the road as well, down to the International Horseshoe. This is going to be the look from the air here with your GT field, and this could tell a story.
Again, you see all these cars together, and it's fine in turn 1. It's until right there in that chicane where the contact begins. It sends those two machines sideways, and then there's a huge stack up there going into the third corner of the horseshoe, and there's just more trouble. One of the orange machines getting caught up in it. That's early race damage. Luckily, everyone, for the most part, able to scurry away from the accident. But again, it just takes 1 or 2 cars getting collected together in just a small sequence of moments that can really take shape of the rest of the field's fate. Really at the exit of the first corner. A better look here from a bit further on behind. You see almost cars 3 wide. This is Richard Bell, the SRN Motorsports Orange team. This was one of the tertiary cars that got involved here. And again, no trouble. Business as usual. Then the smoke comes up right about there. There's the trouble. He sees it. I think either slowing down, got tapped from behind, or maybe just got a tire in the grass. And then the extra tap for reassurance. And more trouble. Bumper torn off, and several GT cars already having to come to pit road. Definitely not what they wanted to see in the first 5 minutes of this race.
Yeah, no kidding. Quite a few drivers with damage now. Josh Gowen, one of the contenders that got collected in his Ferrari. Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing at the back of the field now. The Rescue SCA WMS headed up by Marcus Young with their LMP2. Looking like one of the cars that started from the tail end of the field. So that's why we see him so far back here. Then, of course, you have Samuel Hoff, who is still stranded in pit road getting damage repairs for their McLaren. And then Richard Bell for SR Motorsports Orange, who may very well be down and out of this race. And that's tough, right? Because, I mean, I know some drivers might be eager to try to put the blame on Bell for just sliding across the race, but you got to remember, these cars have ABS on them, and that means that when these cars are sliding, they ain't stopping.
Yeah, and in the grass, it's so hard to find any sort of grip. So when you're starting to slide through there and, you know, cars are scattering all over the place to get around incidents, it's hard to not somewhat be involved in the mess or maybe make a little bit of a mistake. You know, hindsight is always 20/20. But when you're in the hint of the moment, and you've got all this going on around you, you've got all these cars around you on the opening lap, you've got those jitters that maybe you still haven't gotten over yet, you maybe need a lap or two to finally settle into that rhythm. When you haven't done it yet and those nerves are still very high, and you're still mindset of, let me pick up early track position because this is going to set me up nicely for the rest of this event in this Roar Before the 24, it's easy to make just a simple mistake, have a bit of simple contact, and that can easily catastrophize itself into something much larger than that. But again, like I said earlier, the best thing to happen to these drivers is that it happened on the first lap in the first several minutes of the race, because now you have 2.5 hours to still fix this car and get this race going. How many times have we seen in the span of 2.5 hours in a 6-hour race, in a 12-hour race, or a 24-hour event like we'll see next week here at Daytona, how fast things change? For the drivers in trouble so early, thankfully, it's with enough time to spare to which they can repair their cars and at least get some more laps there on the racetrack.
On top of that, you're going to have the fact that this is not a point-scoring race, right? This is only a qualifying race. So if there's a time to get a mulligan, this would be the race. So it's one of those things to keep an eye out for. Now, of course, there's an extensive full-course yellow procedure. Now, we saw this in play already during the 2024 year with these guys, but it's been altered slightly to try and expedite some of the process and to help avoid some restart carnage. And because of that, I would anticipate this to be a fairly quick full-course yellow, given we didn't even get out of lap 1. No one's a lap down, so barely any field sorting that you realistically need to do. I would not anticipate us to be under safety car conditions for more than another lap or two here.
Yeah, we probably won't be down in it for so long. And again, that's a part of the process to clean things up, get some drivers on their way already. But with the expedition process, it's really just to get back to racing. I don't think anyone wants to patrol around this very long road course at what clocks in at over 3.5 miles. I don't think anybody wants to stay here under pacing behind the pace car. It gets kind of a bit of droning. It gets a little boring at times. So the race control wants to make sure they can get everyone under green as quickly as possible. They do that on the oval side of things for NASCAR racing on iRacing. Plenty of leagues and iRacing themselves have done some work at tracks like these at Daytona, you know, Auto Club, Michigan, some of the larger racetracks, in order to slow, or rather speed up the process for caution flags, so you're not spending so much time under the pace lap, and you're able to get back under green and get back to racing, which is obviously what these drivers want to do. And to have the first couple of corners be the side of the issue in that first full course yellow, I mean, didn't help these drivers get into a rhythm. Hopefully this restart can help change things a bit.
See if they get the go-ahead this time through, or if they are going to be going for one more. And it looks like they are going to be going for one more run here around. So this is one of the systems, right? They only have the full course yellow by iRacing safety car for one lap. Now they accelerate to the VSCA full course yellow speed of 80 miles an hour, or roughly 126 kilometers an hour. So I know it says green flag. That is not accurate. We are still under full course yellow conditions, and we will be until at least the end of this lap, while the rest of the procedure is gradually sorted out.
It's going to take a bit to get all these drivers together and put them in the right place at the right time. Of course, you had those drivers that had the early pit road penalties, that they had to start the race on pit road, and several others that are just kind of getting back into things, whether they picked up some damage repair or what. I mean, we've seen the Go-Win Racing machine, the 18, was one of those cars heavily involved in the accident off of turn 2, and they're already back on the racetrack, 28th in their class, 48th overall, but they're back out there. It took a little bit of time to get them back to the field, pacing speed. So just a bit more time for all these drivers to think about what their strategy is going to be for the next restart, because as we see it, you know, maybe we'll see another double file restart for now. Maybe it'll be single file. We'll just have to see when they come out of the Le Mans chicane. So it's going to be really fun to see what happens there. There's Tyler Rubio, the Aries racing machine. One of those GTP cars, just trying to move on forward.
It's going to be a bit rough on this restart for Rubio, isn't it? Because if they don't sort him to the front of the field, he's going to be finding himself restarted behind effectively the entirety of the GT field, and that completely eliminates any possibility on him catch up to the front of his pack. Not to mention he has to go through all of the LP2s as well, but they are still doing class sorting, so we could very well see this car move further forward as well. You also, of course, have deeper in the pack here the likes of Rescue Skill by WMS of Marcus Young. And, of course, you have Daniel Perez-Santiago, and it does look like they are going to sort Tyler Rubio through to the front of the GT3. So that's a huge relief for him because he does not have to worry about passing all of these GT3s under green flag conditions. It is a similar story for Marcus Young for Rescue Skill by WMS.
If we were in the voice chat with Tyler Rubio and his team right now, I'm sure the overall sentiment would be, thank goodness, thank the racing gods. We don't have to cut through all of the slower GT traffic, at least right now. Because there's one thing cutting through the GT traffic in the race session. That's when everybody has already cycled through the run. And for the most part, the GT field is sort of separated. So you have a bit more time to think about what the planned moves are going to be to get around the slower traffic. But when you have a restart in this case, which we're going to see here, and all the cars are bunched up as much as they are, I don't think Tyler Rubio or anyone in the faster classes would really want to be in that position to have to go through so much congestion and tiptoe. Because they're going to lose time in the process as well.
The process continues to sort this field out. It's that anticipation before you go green here that's getting to these guys, right? Because if you don't really have any one fastest lap of the race, we saw a fastest lap being set, but that was when drivers were already under safety car conditions. So for a lot of contenders here, that anticipation is building, and those tires, which already start relatively preheated before you get into one of these races, they're cooling off more and more and more every single lap. And you can weave around all you want, but you're only mitigating how much those tires are cooling off, especially for the prototypes here.
Yeah, the good thing is that, for the most part, everyone's on the same playing field, apart from those that just came in for damage repair. Obviously, they're not going in for tires or fuel for the most part. So you've got everybody on the same set of tires that probably are facing the same conditions as each other under this full course yellow for the first time today. But I mean, we've seen it when tires are different in the amount of stints that they've run, you know, how big of a difference that plays when you spend time under yellow. It really just evens out the drivers that have the edge over the competition in terms of tire wear, and then those who have more worn tires, they start to even out lap by lap, and then that becomes a problem because then whatever advantage you have by having fresh rubber is gone. That's a conversation for a bit later in this race, but for the most part, yeah, it's all about anticipation. You haven't had a full green flag lap cut in yet throughout this race, so you're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm itching to get going. If I'm JD Daniel, I want to separate my gap to Seth Neufeld and the entire field as quickly as I can. But now I'm just trapped here for the moment under yellow, just waiting for that moment to strike. And, especially in turn one, any pass can be made. It just takes one solid restart from any of those guys, second, third, or fourth, to take the overall lead in the first lap. And then Daniel's already having to play catch-up after the first corner. Hopefully that's not the case. He'll have the start on the green flag lap, but again, just everyone waiting to have their first lap completed and just obviously excited to get going. They want Daniel and the rest of this field to start taking the green flag in the first few minutes.
Alvaro Martinez with the World of Sim Racing team. And in fact, for this number 51 car, it's been a bit of a rough start to their race. They're down 2 spots after just that opening lap. And critically as well here, the World of Sim Racing team, they were the winners last year in GTP. So that is, of course, for the overall championship, taking the GTP class win. So it's a rough start to see these guys so far back down the order. 8th place out of a 12-car field. They do have the chance to power their way to the front, but it's going to be a little bit of work for that team if they want to start up front here for the Daytona 24.
And one thing that's really hard to do, apart from just winning the 24 Hours of Daytona, is repeating the 24 Hours of Daytona, or even repeating the Roar. Races like these, they're hard to go back-to-back in because the competition is so fierce, and with endurance racing, the parity really steps up. So many different factors can change a team, a driver's race at any given moment. You know, it was tough for them on the opening start. I'd imagine they were just trying to tiptoe through the first corner, not anticipate any of the trouble. They really wanted to stay out of the way in case anything dire happened, which it sort of almost did at the exit of turn 2 through that little chicane for the GTP class. But, you know, there's still a long way to go in that World of Sim Racing team, as disciplined as they are with Alvaro Martinez behind the wheel here in the 51 to begin this one. I'd imagine they're going to be right on the rest of the field's tails, the 2 BMW M-Team Delta Racing machines that are right in front. You know, I'd imagine that we'll see them shake it up a little bit more as this race continues on green, but again, for right now, just sort of planning the attack, trying to find that right system to be able to get underneath any of those cars and make any of those passes for position. And we were having some really good racing across the LMP2 class in the first few corners, with Alfonso Reyes leading the charge. Kyle Allen had a bit of a charge from Gregory Meismer in the 420 track limit sim racing Thunderbolt machine. We had some really good fights in the middle of that for the first few corners, but looks like all of them going to be back single file, and hopefully we can get back to green flag racing soon. Still waiting official word, and there's all that LMP2 madness. And of course the other look at the GT field and how they ended up stacking up. Look at all that in turn 1. Look at the shot to that yellow to the pink car, the BMW, the Aston Martin working together, and they ended up hitting each other in the first corner. And then once more, where all that trouble began, the Going Racing, the Unitronic Fisher Motorsports car just going hard into the guardrail, and that was at least a 4 to 5 car incident into the horseshoe.
And for those just tuning in, that is why we are on this full course yellow right now for a lap 1 incident, and the field is starting to accelerate here as the green flag has been dropped. They have reached the point where they can gas it up. We are racing once again in the Roar before the 24. Now, of course, the big question is, are these drivers going to be able to survive for one lap this time around? JD Daniel pulling clear for the GTPs in to turn number 1.
We had a really good jump by Seth Neufeld for the BMW M-Team TSR GTP category. They were right behind. JD Daniel had all the drafts, and it looks like there's trouble. LMP2 car, that's Alfonso Reyes, the leader of the LMP2 class, off turn 1.
Spinning off, and that's cold tires for you. Getting caught up, there's another car off with them, and that is allowed for the GT Pro Field to absolutely mug the LMP2 leader, the former LMP2 leader, I should say. GTM's powering through right behind. They're going to manage to get it going before they're caught up by the AMs, but boy, a disaster for Alfonso Reyes down to the back end of the field in LMP2. We got a fight for third here in GT Pro.
And also the GTP class, Mark Scherzel for Albrecht Motorsports ended up in trouble. They slipped up in turn 1, allowed some of the LMP2 traffic to get a little bit close. And for Alfonso Reyes, that's not what you want to see. That's such a tough thing to encounter. The cold tires, the lack of grip in the first corner, and then just the trouble continues, and Alfonso Reyes is going to be behind the 8-ball. Looks like the Aries Racing Tyler Rubio car also hiccuped at the corner exiting the infield road course right to what will be NASCAR 1 and 2. They're right on the apron, just letting the entire field by, but the chaos just continues. No full course yellow here. 2:21 left in this race.
Well, not yet, at least. Matthew Luke took an unauthorized tow, I do believe, out of the West Horseshoe, so we'll have to see what we're doing. He was not at a tow-away zone when that car flashed out of existence, so I don't know what race control is going to do with that, but that is not something that you are typically permitted to do. There you see him just backing off the road. He had spun coming out of the West Horseshoe and then just takes a tow, and I mean, Kenneth, that's not a spot where you can get a free tow from.
No, that's not one of the designated tow-away zones. Race control had given the drivers the briefing in the drivers' meeting and kind of outlined the racetrack and said, hey, if you're going to tow away for any given reason, damage, whether it be connectivity issues, literally anything that could hamper your race, and you want to tow back to pit lane, here are the places on the racetrack where you can do so, and it won't hamper the rest of the competition, and it won't bring out a full course yellow. But for Matthew Luke, Fury SimSport LMP2 team, they're in deep trouble. And another car sent off into the grass. Jeremy Littleton for Vulture Motorsports Pro, same point of contact where we had trouble, right to bring out the first full course yellow. Thankfully slows it down in the grass, gets it back around in the International Horseshoe. losing the spots, but more trouble there as that was at least a 4 to 5 car gaggle of GT Pro cars.
Talk about a chaotic opening salvo here as now you got Thiago Mello fighting it out with Sergei Lazer. This is for third place in the GTP category here, and you've also got Andre Vitor Diaz from fifth, making it a three-way fight for the final podium position now. 2 hours and 20 minutes remain here in the Roar before the 24. No moves being made in the battle for third. A move being made behind on the fight for seventh as Alvaro Martinez trying to make up ground.
And looking onto the inside, remember the lost track position for the World of Sim Racing team. And the same thing for Felipe Silveira, the BMW M Team Delta Racing car. Both of them had sort of fallen back through the cracks. Wastegate Racing and Selena Ward were able to move up just a couple of spots. So these both drivers, these two teams just trying to piggyback up on any sort of momentum they can latch onto right now. And again, just those first few laps where you want to get yourself settled, you want to get used to the racetrack conditions, where the sun is beaming down, where this track is giving you good points and where it's not. And for the most part, they're just really surveying and analyzing what's going on. But how about this battle for what is going to be some really good spots in LMP2? Kyle Allen taking over the lead for the LMP2 class, and Gregory Meismer has been right on his tail again since Alfonso Reyes made that incident in turn one and let these two by. This has been fireworks show since the word go on the restart.
And Kyle Allen trying to fight off Gregory Meismer. You've also got Dominic Eisenberg just tagging on to the tail end of this one. No moves being made just yet in the battle for the LMP2 race lead. A lot of the class leads are incredibly close right now to one another, so we're going to be jumping around a little bit as we try to track all of these different fights at once. 4 different battles for class leads all on at the same time. And we got a closing battle here for GTP. No move going to be made into turn 1 from Seth Neufeld. Although JD Daniel continues to maintain his gap up front. And for GT Pro, you've still got this fight picking up as well. This is, of course, Blocco Motor fighting it out with Virtual Power Sim Racing for the GT Pro lead. It's Aston Martin versus Porsche up front.
Yeah, 2 cars that are going through the Le Mans chicane. Both of them really good so far. And you will watch the third place machine, the World of Sim Racing team with Saul Sanchez Flores all the way back in third. Bit of a decent gap, healthy to the top 2. So they don't really have to worry about that Corvette for right now. But take a good look at what this track looks like. Behind the wheel of this GT Pro car, the Virtual Power Sim Racing machine, and Tomas Silva, the way you have to curve in turn 1, it's such an interesting corner because, again, everything in the infield is flat. You don't have any banking, any sort of elevation change to help you along the way. You just have to stay close to that white line, try to arc it as close as you can to the grass. There's no curbing down there, so we've seen lots of drivers hinge onto the left side tires, get their cars spun around just from a simple mistake like that. And then you have to go through here where all these cars are trying to find their place. This little narrow chicane down in the International Horseshoe. Very tight corner, very slow corner. You got to pace yourself through the corner and then try to just gas it up right at the exit. It's a very wide one. You can end up in that curving very easily. And there's trouble. Another car into the wall.
That's one of the Fisher Motorsports cars. That's Manuel Meyer who has gone around. So the other Fisher Motorsports car now having massive troubles, and he has slacked the arm code. Going to rejoin the racetrack where there's a gap. No tow needed. And it looks like that car driving relatively straight, so it's going to be aero damage, but it could have been worse.
And it was hip-to-hip contact with Jose P. Barbosa, the RTR RIC Team Racing 1 machine. They had just hip-checked at the exit of the Horseshoe, and it just got the other car, the Fisher Motorsports machine, unsettled, hit once, then hit twice, and then just straight into the guardrail. Nothing that Mayer could do to save that car from trouble. That's a hard place to hit. No safer barrier, no nothing. So straight up front end damage, that's going to hamper you, especially here. You know, we talk about the balance of Daytona, how much downforce matters in the infield road course, but how much you need speed on these long straightaways, these long high banked corners here at Daytona. They're so unique to this racetrack. Any bit of that aerodynamic damage is going to slow you down by at least 5 to 10 miles an hour on a straight. You're going to lose so much of that edge compared to the rest of the competition.
On board with Gregory Meismer for Track Limits Sim Racing Thunderbolt as he is trying to run down V1M's Kyle Allen. This is the battle for the LMP2 race lead. It got to about a 10th and a half as they came down to the turn number 1. Now through the dual horseshoes. Meismer trying to stay close. We could get a good drafting run heading down the backstretch and into the Le Mans chicane.
honestly really setting up for passes here at Daytona. Comes down to a bulk of this infield workhorse. If you can't make passes in here, you can at least do the best by setting up a solid exit out of here, because if you can gain a bit more time on the driver in front of you, you have so much banking, you have so much long straightaway before you get to that Le Mans chicane, where you can use a bit of that slipstream draft to get either right alongside them or put enough pressure to where maybe they overshoot that Le Mans chicane and end up in trouble. That's a place of the racetrack that has been tinkered with a lot from the iRacing development crew, trying to replicate what the track looks like in real life. The grass is gone, higher curbs, much more dangerous to overshoot and end up in trouble if you do maybe misstep on one of those corners. But it's all about fundamental aspects of just getting bits of runs on each other, and then on these long straightaways, especially off of the long chicane, where you can pick back up on whatever you lost in the corners and then just get a rally into turn one. And that's exactly where all these GT cars are starting to mesh together. These great battles for position in the middle of the group. That's Nuno Magalhaes in the 24 getting around Jose P. Barbosa, the RTR RIC team racing car. We mentioned that they got involved with Mayer to create the incident off of what was the International Horseshoe. But they're right on each other's tail. This is the closest we've seen this field so far. They haven't really gotten away from each other.
Haven't had the chance to break away just yet. The battle for the GT Pro lead. Close, but no move made for Tomas Silva as Tyler Redden continues to maintain the gap in that Aston Martin. Haven't talked about the GTMs too much here. You've got a McLaren currently leading the way. It's one of the lone Lamborghinis in the field. That is Yannis Constantine trying to go around the outside of a GT Pro McLaren, and he is trying to get a buffer zone between himself and Ryan Huff and that Mercedes AMG just behind in a desperate bid to get a gap in the fight for the GTM lead. But right now, that McLaren is not letting them have it easily.
Yeah, and really in this case for Costantini, you don't want to fight with this car too long, because again, it's not for a class position. You're in control of the GTM field already. You're just looking to put a buffer between yourself and Ryan Huff, who's the second car, that Mercedes GT3 2020, right behind the McLaren. So thankfully, in this case for Costantini, he's able to complete the job. But you just got to really teeter on the close edge of how much do I want to be aggressive here, and should I let them up, because I don't really want to try and gain too much flight too close to the sun and have an Icarus moment.
Battle for third, gonna change hands as Marcus Young powers around the outside of Dominic Eisenberg. Eisenberg trying to fight back into turn one. It's gonna be a brave lunge around the outside, and Eisenberg holds on. And no move made from Marcus Young, trying to get the crossover through turn two, making the look into the International Horseshoe. Does he go for the send here? He looked for it, but he's gonna back out. Marcus Young falls back to fourth, and Eisenberg punches his ticket through into third.
How long has it been since we started this race, Nolan? What, 28 minutes since the drop of the green flag? And Marcus Young, who had a pit road penalty before this race started, is already fighting for third in the LMP2 class. That is how wonderful endurance racing is. With that full course yellow, it leveled everybody out. It sort of negated any of the pre-race penalties that those drivers had starting on pit road, Marcus Young included. So wonderful to see him pick back up and have his team in a good place to begin this race on the opening stint. Great battle for fourth of the overall positions in GTP. Fight into turn one. Gonna hopefully be decided that VSR Competición machine. Sergi Lazare nearly making contact with Andre Vitor Diaz. They're cutting through the GT traffic now in the International Horseshoe. And a huge dive by Vitor Diaz, and he slinks from the outside.
Good Lord, that was close as he fires his way by an Aston Martin. You see all the furious headline flash from the GTP. He's trying to fight it out with themselves and desperately trying to get through the GT traffic here in a hurry. Now, this is one of the hairiest moments, right? And outside of the opening lap, this is the point where you are most likely to get a full course yellow. It's from the first time in the cash lap traffic because everybody is bunched up together.
Yeah, again, because of the chaos we had to start this race, everyone is less separated than they otherwise would be. As look at the battle for the LMP2 lead right now. It is becoming so much fun. Kyle Allen having to hold off Gregory Meismer. Basically the entire time these two have been around each other, they have created some great racing across the board. Third place, Dominic Eisenberg, Marcus Young, they continue their duel for position number 3 in the LMP2 class. This is where things start to get fun, Nolan. The crossover point begins. Everyone has to cut through traffic while also worrying about who's in front of them and what battles they can make of themselves. Kyle Allen under fire. Once again, Gregory Meismer completes the pass. New leader in LMP2.
Good run there for Gregory Meismer. For the first time this race, Kyle Allen falls, and this could be a huge run here as Meismer tries to pull away. But, of course, Kyle Allen going to have that big run, powering down around the oval sections of the racetrack. Fight for 15th is on in GT Pro. Side by side in the midst of some traffic here down into turn number 1. One of those drivers, of course, being Manuel Meyer, is going to drop to last place on the boards for the GT Pro field, and right now 44th overall, and in the midst of the GT AM field as well. Speaking of the AMs, here's the fight for 9th, which is currently up for grabs in GTM.
Old Motorsports car, Christopher Limprecht, the BMW M Team TSR GTM. I mean, these are where these guys are cutting their teeth, sort of at the back end of this field. And remember, the largest portion of this group coming into this row before the 24, they all categorized in the GT class, whether it be Pro or AM. 16 cars in GT Pro that were set for the entry list, 16 GT AM cars. That really opens up the majority of this field, because we had 12 LMP2s, 14 GTPs. You know, the GT class is so popular because it's so parity-like. There's so much closeness between those drivers, lots of options as well in manufacturers, so you can have a lot of fun with whatever allegiance you want to bring to yourself with manufacturers, whether it's Mercedes, McLaren, Lamborghini. And you've got so many options to look forward to using, and it just creates some of the best battles. I mean, even in the Royal last season, or 2 seasons ago in 2024, the gap in GT was, what, under a full 1/10 of a second, 74 1/1000ths of a second for the overall win in the overall 24 hours of Daytona for GTs. So they're really close. It's so parity-like, and it's just so much fun to watch as well.
Fight for 3rd is on in GTP as Lion GP and Bravo Snow trying to fight it out with VSR Competizione Bianco just behind them. They have to cut their way, though, through a mess of GT traffic. That's kind of hampering Sergio Lazer from 4th place here as he tries to run down Thiago Mello in the midst of the battles. Down the inside as Andre Vitor Diaz continues to battle it out, and a hard fight for the final podium spot still on in GTP.
And VSR Competizione team, Bianco, Sergi Lazare back behind the wheel here to start this stint. All Spanish team, by the way, based in Madrid. This team all full of great Spanish talent. It was founded in 2009, one of the great older teams, a part of this VSCA SportsCar Championship, and having a good start so far in 4th in the overall class as they just continue to work on Thiago Mello. And look at where this crossover happens with LMP2. They're just now starting, by the way, to get around the GT traffic. It took them a little while because obviously the GTP class is just so much faster, but as these guys are getting around, it's where the crossover point becomes just a little treacherous, and they have to just scurry around some of the traffic. Huge dive. Marcus Young again still putting the heat on Dominic Eisenberg, but they're going to have to watch out a little bit. Tyler Rubio, remember that hiccup he had on this corner right here. Final one out of the infield coming on to NASCAR 1 and 2. It lost him a ton of time compared to the rest of the GTP traffic. He's just now starting to build up his momentum. And a beautiful way to just be patient through the road course, wait for these guys to settle their business, and then do it on the straights where you have all that wide track and so much to operate. Rubio gets around easily.
All of this while the fight for the GT Pro lead is still on. Tyler Redden has been doing a phenomenal job playing defense here against Tomas Silva. Has not allowed for him to get any kind of a run going here, try as he may. So this fight, one that is going to continue to be a hard-fought fight between Tyler Redden and Tomas Silva.
And it's just fun to keep each other honest in a run like this, because you have all these cars within a 1/10 or 2 of each other. Any one hiccup could send these guys out of competition. And again, we still have 2 hours left, a little over 2 hours to go, and there's still pit stops to go, driver changes left. I mean, the max you can put in as a driver is 1 hour and 55 minutes, which is a lot of this race, but obviously not enough to cover the entire race distance of 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we're going to see changes, we're going to see pit stops, and it's really made right here the money, where you can keep other drivers around you close enough If you can't make a gap to them, at least be around them to the point where when you have to come down pit road, when this first stint is over, you're right next to them. You either beat them off of pit road, or you can be close enough to beat them out on track with fresh tires and a brand new driver or a brand new stint. So we're really going to keep a keen eye on where this GT Pro class settles out, especially those first two, because they've been right around each other the entire race so far. Look at that pass. Textbook in the Le Mans chicane.
Wastegate Racing's Will Robertson kind of using the headlight flash there in a huge lunge of the Le Mans chicane to try to intimidate Smel Labe from Blacko Motor M out of the third place spot in GTM. And it was a tactic that worked, but some drivers might not take too kindly to that, right? I mean, flash the headlights against the guy you're fighting that. Not typically solid etiquette for racers, but we'll see how Labe responds to that. I know some drivers tend to fight a bit more aggressively when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a signal of sometimes respect in a sense. Sometimes you want to flash the lights to let the driver behind you know, hey, I'm behind you, especially if they're faster traffic, GTP, LMP2. It's supposed to be a courteous message to let you know that they exist, that they're there, and be like, hey, I'm going to get around you at some point. I want to let you know that I'm here. But when the GT class gets into it with each other, it could be taken as a sign of disrespect a little bit, because it's a little bit more like, hey, can you please get out of my way? I'm the faster car. And in that sense, sometimes the driver in front isn't insistent on getting out of the way and giving up a spot on the racetrack. So then you have that bit of an internal debate between those drivers on who should have the spot. But that's what racing is all about, Nolan. It's about fighting on the track. That's why we run these races. We don't theorize who's going to be better than the other. We run the race and we see who's better over the long run. We have our first pit stop. The Monarch Racing team is going to be in from the GTP class. It's a Cadillac V-Series R coming in. So first crucial stop, maybe a change of driver, change of pit stop.
Hey, to correct you, that's actually one of the Dolaras. That's that's from the LMP2 field. That was Vitor Pita coming down to pit road. No driver change, though, so they're going to keep him in for one more stint. Evidently wanted to go for a bit of a sprint stint on that one, and as such, takes that run away. Meanwhile, Tyler Redden continuing to fend back Tomas Silva. Do you think Silva's playing with his food a little bit here, or is he more trying to save a bit of gas behind the Aston Martin? Because he's been close a few times.
I think he's probably saving a little bit. I don't think he's trying to push the issue, because if he really was, he would have done so already. He would have been much closer. They would have been side by side. We would have seen a much closer fight. But you're kind of weighing your options here, right? Because you're that second place car and you're thinking to yourself in Tomas Silva, you know, I've got the leader right in my tracks. I can see them. I know that I'm either level with them or just a bit faster on the racetrack. I know I can make this pass, but do I really want to level out side by side with this car in front? And then ultimately bring in Sanchez Flores, Steven Nobes. The third and fourth cars in the GT Pro class, they're still there. I mean, they have a decent gap, but they've honestly put themselves in a position where, especially the Corvette in Sanchez Flores, it can be close enough to where they go side by side. You know, one of them coughs up a mistake, and then this Corvette and this team can just take the pieces and just continue moving forward and say thank you very much. So, you know, maybe if I'm Silva, I don't know if I'm playing with my food or more so just waiting behind, seeing what this first stint provides, and most importantly, not trying to open up the battle for the lead.
Trouble, Sergio Lazaire spinning out in the big five far up the grid, and a meatball fly being given. That car's going to have to come to pit road, and he is not moving. This could be our second full course yellow of the day as he is stranded at turn one.
Oh, and it was contact with the GT car right in front, the McLaren, I believe. Michael James, the Superstar Racing Team yellow car. That was involved in turn one, and there's the full course yellow from race officials. That is the right call. Of course, that GTP car stranded at the runoff in turn one, and it was huge damage to that car, and especially to Michael James as well. And then there was more trouble. Another car had been involved, and that was Andre Vitor Diaz, Nolan. Remember, he was in the fight for position earlier on in this race. He just got tagged, nowhere to go in the incident. Oh, just a horrible incident for those two drivers. Just a poor place, poor time. As we'll get a better look at it, this is where the VSR Competición Bianco car of Lazada was moving forward. There's the GT car in front. They start to hop on the brakes early.
What are you doing?
I don't know. Maybe just anticipating that the car would take the outside versus the inside. Or maybe that Lazada thought that the GT car would go out wide, give them the space in turn one. But that just ultimately didn't happen. They blend together, they make about contact, and then hard into the inside wall goes Lazada. That's really the dealt blow And then Vitor Diaz is just seeing that car careen back across the racetrack. He doesn't know where it's going to go. You're predicting in a moment's notice, and then just T-bones him in turn one. That is such a tough, heartbreaking situation for those two drivers. We're having such a good race to start. There's a second look. There's that GT car. The flash of the lights again, trying to be like, hey, I'm here. Please get out of the way. I think just miscommunication, honestly, Nolan, between those two. Predicting each other's place and where they were going to be in turn one, and ultimately they ended up in the same place at the same time.
And then, as you mentioned, the RTR Brick Team Racing Machine had problems. This is in the Le Mans chicane. A few seconds later, that's the BMW that you're looking at here. And there it is. Lost control and went hard into the outside wall just shy of turn 3.
That's a tough spot. I mean, we talked about this Le Mans chicane, the updates that iRacing made to replicate real life. It replicated the 3D curbing, the yellow and blue painted curbs. And this has been a danger zone even before the update. When you get those tires over, there's turtle curbing there. The car unravels, it loses control, and the angle at the speed in which you're going is so dangerous. I mean, I can tell you just how many times I've crashed from that exact same scenario. Just getting a bit too much of the curbing, the car just loosens up, and then you have really a hard time saving it.
I have no words for that.
There's Lozada's incident, a hard hit in the inside wall.
I mean, he's not like, you're not just entitled to the inside there. I mean, yeah, I mean, the blue flags in multi-class racing, they're not mandatory like they are in Formula racing. They're advisory flags. I mean, you're not entitled to the line. Like, the GT car has every right to run his line, and I don't see any way that the GT car did anything wrong there.
I mean, Nolan, this is the long-tenured debate that happens in real life, and it happens more often in iRacing, just given the nature of the sim and the power performance of these cars, is who has the right-of-way. Are you the faster car that has the right-of-way that can do whatever they want and needs the slower traffic to give way at all times? Or is it a sense where it's more of an equity sequence where the GT cars say, hey, I know you're faster than me technically, but I still have my place. I own my real estate on the racetrack, so I can race whoever I want. I can put my car wherever I want. It's up to you to get around me. I've seen so much discourse on who should be moving out the way, and plenty of incidents exactly like that. A miscommunication between a GT and a GTP driver in where each of them should respectively be when they eventually have to merge together. And I think the GT car just thought the inside was where they were going to be. They tried to be predictable. They also hit the brakes a lot earlier, so they were anticipating that Lozada would go around them on the outside and just make quick use of that situation. But I think Lozada really wanted the inside. He flashed the lights, and when you're going that fast, the closing rate is so high that it's hard to make those decisions and think about it, because it's happening in the span of maybe a second, 2 seconds, less than that. And you'll get a better look once again from this aerial shot. There's Lozada. He's hung to the inside. He sees that GT car, and he's saying, hey, I want the inside. He's going to flash his lights right here. You can't see it. That's where the braking begins. The fire coming out of the exhaust from the McLaren. I mean, at that point, you can't get out of the way. He's trying to do so. He barely makes contact with the McLaren. I mean, at this point, though, he's in full catastrophe mode. He is sailing to the inside wall. There's no saving this car now. So I really just think a miscommunication on who should have been where. Lozada really wanted the inside, and he didn't get it, and then had to swerve out of the way, and ultimately that's what hurts his race. And then Vitor Diaz, I mean, poor soul, nowhere to go in turn one.
Yeah, nothing at all that Diaz could do there, and I feel really bad for the number 12 car, right? I mean, Andre Vitor Diaz did nothing wrong there. He was just trying to follow his line, and this is going to be the look on board with the BMW M Team Delta Racing driver. And what they saw, just, you couldn't avoid it. You can't do anything in that situation.
You can't. And that's the worst part about it, when you know you're losing control and you can't fix that scenario in the last second. You think to yourself in hindsight, maybe I should have slowed down earlier seeing that. Maybe I should have predicted that would have happened. But, and that's the mindset of a driver, right? You think of the incident, you look at the replay, and either you take pride in your decision, or you tell yourself, you know, maybe I could have done this. Maybe I could have switched this up and I wouldn't have been involved. But realistically for Vitor Diaz, there was nothing he could do to scurry away from that car. It was careening at such an awkward angle at a very vulnerable point of the racetrack where you're in the middle of the braking zone, and we've talked often about braking and turning, how that's such a hard thing to do at the same time in any car, let alone some of these GTP, LMP2, and GT machines. It doesn't really blend well when you're hard on the brakes and you're having to steer the car away in a moment's notice. The grip's not going to be there, and the car's just going to weight shift into a different direction. So it's such a tough break for Vitor Diaz and for Lozada, and even for that McLaren car. Just a tough situation to be in. As there's Jose Barbosa, driver of the GT Pro machine for RTR RIC Team Racing. Seen some good things out of him so far. Bit of front-end damage as well.
Yeah, he's the car that went spearing into the on the exit of the Le Mans chicane there. And that is going to be potentially a big problem for him as well. That aero damage is not it doesn't look much, but that car took quite a hefty whack as well. Ay, ay, ay. Quite a big incident then to kick things off here. And the whole, prototype, who's got right of way when you're lapping cars, this has been a discussion. I mean, even the last time we were at the 24 Hours of Daytona, there was one team ended up being suspended after the race for 4 separate incidents throughout the Daytona 24 for very similar situations. Just like we saw, just ran through the cars in front of him and never gave any inch. It's something that the league administration is going to be looking at post-race for sure, because that's the type of thing that needs to be looked at, right? And there needs to be a standard that is set, a baseline as to, what is the point where you've now crossed the line and you no longer have the right of way.
Yeah, I'm sure race control is going to take a good look at that, get both sides of the story most importantly, and then, just kind of analyze what the replay tells them and telemetry as well. We'll get the green flag technically, but the pace car, I believe, is going to come back out, and our full course yellow will come back to VSCA pace speed at 80 miles an hour. But, yeah, I mean, it's such a tough scenario to judge that. And I'd imagine in the case of Lozada, he's thinking to himself, I had the right of way. I'm the faster car. I should be able to put myself in that position. I flash my lights, and, there may be arguments about how early or how late in this case did he flash his lights, the placement of the car, his attempt to avoid the incident, which ultimately created the further incident. That's such a difficult position to be in as race control, because when you have multi-class racing like this, you're eventually going to get into that eventual clash of who should be where. Does anyone own any real estate on this racetrack, or is that all theoretical?
It is a discussion that is no doubt going to be big in the coming days of this race and the lead up to the Daytona 24, especially with the particular high speeds that this track can bring about. But I'll tell you what, this race showing no signs of getting any less exciting if the opening 40 minutes of this race is anything to go by. So, second full course yellow of the day. We're going to take a step back when we return. It's more racing action on Green Flag TV. Stay with us.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the Roar before the 24. Still under our second full course yellow of the day. Once again, my name is Little Ramble alongside Candace Bueno, bringing you all the action from start to finish of the 2-hour and 40-minute race that sets the field for the McConey Setup Shop Daytona 24. Pit road is open at the end of this lap, Kenneth, and we are expecting virtually everyone to be in.
Yeah, we were talking about this under the recent commercial break, just how much this second full course yellow is going to affect strategy, because now, technically, we run 24 laps, and given the fuel consumption windows for these cars, you know, you're teetering maybe about 25 to 30 laps, but in a sense, given how much chaos we've seen so far, could this be the potential point where all of these guys decide, hey, let's come down pit road, let's make this decision, and it appears the consensus answer is going to be yes. Everyone's under the double yellow line from the first GTP class. Everyone's following in suit. So wholesale service down pit road with an hour and 47 left, Nolan. We were expecting this to happen under green, but now that everyone's on a level playing field, this is going to be a money stop for track position.
Yes, sir. So several drivers come down to pit road here, and this is where everything is going to get set to really kick off. The busiest you're going to see pit road all night long.
Oh, and JD Daniel has overshot his pit box, so maybe that could be lost time for the overall race leader.
This is going to be quite the journey here for a lot of drivers. So here we go. A lot of cars coming in, and we could expect to see some drivers going for driver swaps as well. You know, the driver swaps under safety car periods like this, it's one of the best times to go for it. Vitor Pita, though, first car out of pit road, he's going to lead the entire field off of pit road.
Oh, look at that blend point. Everyone going to that single lane pit road access. And they're just 2 to 3 wide, and Vitor Pita is going to come out first. Remember, though, we saw that Monarch Racing team number 99 come down pit road under green, giving up all that time to the rest of the LMP2 competition. So this is a strategic call now that this full course yellow has come out officially. As it looks for the GTP class, Daniel just barely got out in front of Seth Neufeld, so that would have been much closer had the hiccup been much bigger from Daniel. But I don't expect Vitor Pita's last at the front to be any longer than maybe 2 to 3 corners, but given how chaotic this race has been already, I wouldn't be surprised if anything crazy came up as well.
Alfonso Race with a black flag, trying to imagine for some sort of pit road violation, likely speeding. So that's unfortunate news there for Alfonso Race, who's going to have to come down pit road again under green. This car cannot catch a break today.
Yeah, that's the nature of endurance racing. Sometimes you have a hiccup at the beginning and things turn around. Sometimes you start good and you end well, and then sometimes things just really don't go your way in almost all phases of the race. And for Alfonso Race, it was that one mistake in turn 1, and it wasn't helped by anyone else. It was just simple cold tires. You're in that first corner, you're turning and braking, the car just unraveled from behind, and it just sent him spinning, and he didn't pick up any further damage, but the lost track position was kind of more than enough to settle them back behind the 8 ball, and to have a black flag here off of this pit road entry was just a nail in the coffin, really, for what was a solid start for that team, and what has really turned around in probably the worst way possible. But hour 44 to try and settle that and continue to learn from either the mistakes. And again, that's what the Roar before the 24 really is. It's a qualifying race, most importantly, but second of all, it's a place to learn. It's a benchmark that you can set for yourself and for your team about how you're going to function when the real McConey Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona begins next week. So, you know, even for Alfonso Race and how much of a journey they've been through today, even though it's been mostly in the negative, they can learn from that. Say, hey, let's not do this again when the 24 Hours of Daytona really starts next week, and when we actually run for points and an overall championship for the end of the season. That's really where we're able to learn from these hiccups and have a better time, especially over a longer race.
Daniel Perez-Santiago getting the wave around to catch the get a lap back here this afternoon. You also see a couple of GT cars separating the Monarch Racing team for Pack Sim Sport. That is Connor Botting for Going Racing. Fresh into the car, by the way, going for that driver change under this full course yellow. And then, of course, it is Just behind them, SimCity Racing's Vincent Herbier, that is also in front of the GTP leaders. I'd imagine they might get waved around as well here before this race goes green when we go for the class sort, which should be any time now. A couple other cars, drivers rush of the cars. Aaron Beaver jumping in for Unitronic, Fisher Motorsports. I see Thomas Spencer in for a Superstar Racing team. They're now getting their wave around to catch the tail end of the pack. So quite a few contenders here jumping into the cars. Fresh faces to the Roar before the 24, and they are jumping into quite the quite the run here.
And for Vincent Lerbier, driver with so much accolades in this area of competition for VSCA. Most importantly, won the 24 Hours of Daytona back in 23 for the GTD class. 2023 champion in GTD as well, so just tallied that onto an overall title. 2022 champion in the sports car and sprint cup division. So you talk about such an experienced driver from Canada that has really made his name known in VSCA as one of the best, especially in the GT class. The things have unraveled differently though for the SimCity Racing team with Carson Allen behind the wheel first to begin that race. But you know, Vincent Lerbier, talk about one of those star-studded names in VSCA competition. Wouldn't be surprised though if he ends up picking back and maybe making a race out of what has otherwise been a bit more of a tough journey for them.
So Thomas Spencer going to pick up the leading group, while there is Santiago just now catch onto the tail end of the line, and he will be shuffled through before too long here as well. You already see him starting to pick a few drivers off here. Thoughts on Alfonso race here? I mean, is this a run where we can expect to see these guys making any kind of a run? Oh, a small update, by the way. Carlos Alonso Garcia Bayonne has actually jumped into the car for VSR Competición Bianco, so might be looking to see if these guys can get that car fixed up enough that it can get out onto the racetrack. The meatball flag has been cleared, so while that car is definitely not in pristine condition, it is in a state where it is now legal to go back out on track.
You know, the spirit of endurance racing, Nolan, is get the car on track and run laps by any means necessary. I think they understand at this point their race is not going to be competitive. It's not going to be in place where they're going to finish well and where they won't qualify well for the Makoni Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona next week. But, you know, run laps, get experience with each other, do what you can to salvage, because hour and 40, we've already had 2 full-course yellows. This race has already taken out tons of hefty competition. I mean, what did we just see in the GTP class? 2 very strong cars taken out in one fell swoop entering turn 1. So if that befalls any of the other competitors, not that VSR Competición is hoping for that, but if it does end up occurring in any sense of the word, then they could be able to catch back up and maybe gain a crucial spot or 2, and that changes things for the overall 24 Hours of Daytona. So, yeah, I mean, driver change, just reset. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment for those guys, just to, most importantly, get that car back out on the speedway and do what they can to run laps and work together. And, you know, even sometimes when the car's damaged and your race is over, that's where the most fun is had, because you get to goof around a little bit in the voice chat. It's not as serious. You just get to run laps and overall have a good time with your friends. I don't think you'd want to be doing that based on, you know, what this series is all about, competition, but if you're forced in that scenario and you've got nothing else, why not?
Class sort continues on so far here this afternoon with no end in sight for the time being, but we will be back to green flag racing before too long, so I'm going to take a quick chance to run down what's coming up here on Green Flag TV. When we go racing next, it is going to be later on this afternoon. Immediately after tonight, we jump over to the Talladega Superspeedway for the SRA Superspeedway Blitz. And then on Monday night, the High Tide Race Day swings out to the Kansas Speedway for what will be an exciting run as they make their first runs here in 2026. The PSR Winter Series is back for more on Wednesday, followed by the Zero Torque Racing League at the Iowa Speedway, kicking off the round of 16 for the playoffs on Friday night. And then, of course, next Saturday, it is the VSCA Sports Car Championships Makoni Setup Shops 24 Hours of Daytona. That will be kicking off at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, later on, just after that race ends, the Precision Automobile Club Esports has their penultimate race at Watkins Glen International. That will be on Sunday. So plenty of races then still yet to come here on Green Flag TV, and no end in sight. 2026 is going to be a busy year.
And we had 2025 rolling around, coming to an end. Man, you guys don't stop working. I mean, that's the grind. That's the spirit. Just grinding, getting a race already in 2026 on the first day. You know, no rest for the restless, right? That's what they say.
GT Pros have been sorted out from the GTMs. And there you see Connor Botting waiting for the rest of the GTM field to catch up to the tail end of him. So drivers are almost in full position here. The one thing that's standing out to me, V-Torpedo maintains the overall race lead still up front ahead of all of the GTPs.
Remember, the difference in stints is roughly 7 laps between when V-Torpedo came down pit road versus when basically his other competition, technically Dominic Eisenberg, the technical leader of the LMP2 group behind the GTPs, but second in that class. So, I mean, it's not that big of a difference, and if you're able to have that track position, I mean, why not? If you came down earlier, you had your service, PETA's still in this stint, why not use that to have a buffer between yourself and the rest of the LMP2 competition? Although I believe they are going to cycle things around, so PETA will be the first driver in the LMP2 class, but we'll have to give way to all the GTP traffic. But, I mean, regardless, not a bad call at all. You stay out, I mean, you come in already, and then you stay out in this sequence, and then you just let fate decide what's going on. And for the Monarch Racing team, I mean, why not in a race that's been solid but hasn't been standout for them? If you could put yourself in the spotlight, be the leader of the LMP2 class here, that's going to be big.
And you saw V-Torpedo was given the instructions to drop behind the front runners, so the GTPs now lead the way, and V-Torpedo will not have the buffer as he is going to be lined up with the rest of the LMP2 field. They will now seek to look to potentially close in the gap. And the GT Pros just now catching up to the back end of the LMP2 field. So restart looking imminent, I would anticipate, if not this lap, then the next one.
And I don't know if we touched on this, but for the V1M11 group, they have a new driver. Rico Kohlmeyer stepped in. So it's going to be a different driver here to face Dominic Eisenberg. And that will change things a bit. You know, driver style, driver aggression is going to change based on who steps into the race car at any given moment. So for this team, they wanted a bit of a fresh start off of that pit stop, the first one of this race. So for Kohlmeyer, he's going to get his first set of laps here right behind the 2 cars that are in the LMP2 control. And we saw just how good of a battle that twin-turn SRV by Rebecca Bornheim team and V1M were battling against each other in the first run while we were under green. They kept each other within a tenth or two of each other. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Kohlmeyer does, especially now that PETA has the overall track position is in the cleanest of air. I mean, this is going to be a masterful battle in a turn 1. Maybe watching this more than any of the others alongside Silva and Herber, given Lerber, given how good of a battle they've had in GT and those teams already.
And you see now the weaving beginning, which does mean that the class sorting phase is officially complete. No other cars will be making their way around, so drivers are cleared to weave across the racetrack to get things ready for the restart. And this one will be getting back underway just shy of an hour and a half to go, it is looking like. Kenneth, what do you think? I mean, we made it the good distance there once we got some laps in. Do you reckon these guys are going to be able to keep going the distance, or are we slowing it down one more time before this race is out?
You know, oh, there's trouble.
Oh, you're kidding me.
There's a car around.
It's Diaz.
Right before NASCAR 3. And it is Andre Vitor Diaz, so the trouble continues. That could not have been timed more perfectly given your question. Yeah, we're going to see more chaos in this race. You know, I had the fingers up. Hopefully we wouldn't. That is obviously not going to affect the overall yellow, but...
Well, is he going to get his spot back is the question. It looks like he's going to attempt it, but you got to look out because you got cars weaving around up here. Oh, boy. Sandra Vitor Diaz. Oh, that was after it had already happened. Sorry. Here we go. We'll try this one again. Oh, just spun the tires up, trying to get some heat into them.
That's definitely one of the
And
mistakes you make. I mean, it's tough. You're going side by side. You're doing the swerve, and you're at the top
it's
end
not
of your
over.
gear.
It's not over. V1M has just crashed. Rico Kohlmeier's into pit road. After this.
Oh, no.
Sorry,
I remember Kohlmeier.
That's Jeremy Carter, sorry. That's from the GTPs. What is going on? You'd think there's something on the racetrack.
And these cars have so much power. And I'd imagine it's the same situation as Vitor Diaz, just obviously a lot more catastrophic. You're at the top end of a gear. The revs are high. The wheels are starting to spin. Again, these are cold tires. These guys haven't gotten a full green flag lap in after coming in. So the grip is not there, like we've mentioned all day long. And, you know, you put a little bit too much gas in it, you don't think the car is going to unravel. You know, with these machines that are so sophisticated, so advanced, they have the underfloor that is so specific to a car not in a yaw angle. As soon as you get a yaw in it and the car starts to spin, the downforce in the grip is therefore fully gone. So you're just a passenger more often than not. It's hard to very much save the machine when it's like that. And the heartbreak continues for several drivers in the most awkward and the most unbelievable of ways.
So we have two other updates as well, by the way, in regards to incidents. The incident that caused this full course yellow has been officially put on the books, and Alfonso Rice has been disqualified for failing to serve the black flag, and we've had another spin!
Yeah, there's more trouble.
Oh, I have no words. I have no words. Kenneth, help me.
Ricardo Anselmo was involved in that, as well as...
We're going green. We're going green. That's not going to impede things.
That's Matthew J. Luke. That was the second machine involved. They had tussled on the back straightaway, and somehow we're back green. All of that was under the full course yellow, just ready to get the field underway, and JD Daniel back in control to turn one.
Fury Simsport and Grow Racing Team both also have black flags now, likely as a result of the spins that they've just encountered. I don't know what to tell you. I genuinely don't know what to say anymore. That is make that 4 prototype spins now under the full course yellow conditions in the span of what, 5 minutes? This is the look of what happened, and they were bunching up the field, and there was a stack up. That was with contact.
Oh, they slowed down. Again, everyone wants to be right around each other for the restart. You want to be nose to tail. You want to get as much advantage as you can. I mean, what we saw with Daniel off of one of the first restarts of this race, he got such a huge gap off the Le Mans chicane, and it allowed for nobody behind to really make a run at it. You want to be so close to the competition where you can be right on their tail, maybe alongside them before turn one comes about. And if one driver slows down, it's just a domino effect from there. Sometimes it's hard to conjure up words for the indescribable, but that's what we do. And unfortunately, for so many drivers, their race has been derailed in probably the most confusing way possible.
Well, all of that has occurred. This race is back underway. Ryan Huff for SRN TFR Alliance, powering by Yanis Constantine of the Lamborghini. So for the first time, the Lamborghini falls in this race as they struggle to fight it out with one another, making their way down the back straight and into the Le Mans chicane. Another look to the inside for the GTM lead, but he's going to back out at the last second.
You don't want to do that in the bus stop. You don't really want to make a move and be side by side, because like we already saw under green, the curbs are so dangerous. There's one Figueroa Correa for the VSR Competición Nero squad. And the accuracy is going backwards. Looks like a hiccup there in the Le Mans chicane, but you don't want to go side by side. You want to be single file, follow the traffic in front of you. And we mentioned those curves, how dangerous they can be. Figueroa Correa just hopped a bit too much on the first curve, and around he went into the asphalt.
And I'm sure he is thankful that they have repaved that section now and it's not grass. I guarantee you, if that's grass on the outside, he is going hard into the tires.
Yeah, you really want to escape any of that mistake, and thankfully they paved all of that. You know, Daytona did that in an initiative to clear up any potential blowover incidents for NASCAR. It was not for sports car racing. They did it because Ryan Preece went flipping in the 2023 Coke Zero Sugar 400, and then they had to flip the following year in the same race because of that grass, how it hooked the car and sent them as they were airborne up and over. So they paved all of that down to make sure that the incident would not happen again in that sense and as chaotic as a blowover flip. But it affected the sports car racing scene. It enabled them to rehaul that Le Mans chicane on the back straightaway and have all of that pavement. So it's a saving grace for Correa there, as we have a great battle building up so far for position further up in the GT class. Manuel Mayer, remember the trouble he was in earlier today. He's picked back up for Vulture Motorsports Pro, and Rodrigo's Marreiros for the RTR RIC Team Racing 1 machine right to the outside on the back straightaway to the braking zone.
Oh, a big lunge into the chicane. They're able to hold it together, and boy, that was a bit incredible right there. Oh no! And Marreiros has just been flagged on top of it all. It continues to get bad to worse as, oh dear, yet another car going to encounter problems, and just like that, the 88 car is going to be forced into pit road.
And the hits just keep coming.
Oh, they're spinning again!
Behind.
Oh,
Matthew
look out.
J. Luke just squeezing by that. It's Ryan Huff.
boy.
The GTM car sideways in the middle of the field entering turn 1. And the whole field scurries by.
Caution.
And there's the full course yellow again,
they had
our
to.
third of the race. Nolan, it's been tough for the traffic. It was 3 wide on the tri-oval. And as we had the second look at it, it was hard contact between those 3. And Ryan Huff, who was in competition for the GTM lead, is going to get spun around. And I think JD Daniels probably feeling a little frustrated right now. He's got the lead in hand. It's going to be good that it's frozen right now, but I mean, he just wants to keep racing like everyone else, and we're going to be under the pace car once more in this race.
That's a situation where you have no choice but to pull the trigger on the safety car, right? I mean, you have a car stopped sideways at literally the fastest point on the racetrack. No choice.
Yeah, I mean, that car stopped. It's such a dangerous point of the racetrack. That's the start of the braking zone. Look at this, 3 wide, where Ryan Huff is on the outside, and it's the Lamborghini who's going to kind of pinpoint all of this. The Daily Car Dot Market Aries racing machine of Yanis Konstantin. He's going to be the one that points his nose in the middle. They're 4 wide, by the way, faintly 4 wide. On the straightaway to the 18-degree tri-oval, he attempts to move to the inside. I don't believe Ryan Huff is expecting him to be there, but by the time they are, remember that red car on the inside. And this Josh Goen, he can't go into the double yellow. That's illegal. You can't do that. So he just goes through the middle, and the space just runs out.
And remember, this is the fight for the GTM class lead as well between these 2 drivers, which is why you see him making such an aggressive move, but definitely one that was not on. There just was no hole there for him, and that is a shot that Ryan Huff takes into the outside wall. That LMP2 did a great job to skate through that. A lot of cars did a good job to skate through that.
All of them could have made this situation much more dire, but thankfully they got out of the way. They reacted in enough time, and high IQ for the field to step out of the way. But I mean, that's his competition. That's how you do it when you're running so close to each other. But I'm not sure what the decision was there. Maybe he anticipated Huff to go up high. They saw that GTP car go around. So maybe the decision there was, hey, if I'm Konstantin, I'm going to see Ryan Huff. I have my nose there. He should move up high. Let us go 3 wide to turn 1. But then you think about it for a second time and you say, when do you ever go 3 wide in turn 1? And then the space runs out. Huff is defending his position, and the contact is ultimately made, and at a high rate of speed, these guys are going over 175 miles an hour. As here's Matthew J. Look, he had a good look at where this incident unfolded and how he got away from it. But yeah, just hard-nosed racing, not giving up real estate. And it just creates another full course yellow here from Daytona.
And then from Aaron Beaver from the Unitronic Fisher Motorsports crew. Goes up high to let the GTP through, but then has to stack up for the incident. And really locks it down and gets through it up on the outside. Good job to slow up for that. Let's ride on board here with the Lamborghini of Yanis Constantine for Daily Car Market Harris Racing. I mean, I can see what he's going for. The hole was there, but whether it's going to stay open, that's the debatable point.
Yeah, he had the space in order to make that move. The car fit for sure. But again, my prophecy, or my at least hypothesis, is that Ryan Huff, he was expecting Ryan to move up a bit higher because you got the spotter at that point telling you inside, whether it's iRacing spotter or someone in the voice chat with you as a real life spotter and all eyes on the racetrack. They're probably going to tell you, hey, car inside, you're 3 wide. And Huff maybe would make that anticipated decision to move a bit higher on the track, give a bit more space, and then have them flourish 3 wide down the tri-oval, to which, and then it's up for the racing gods to decide what happens in turn 1 when they get there. But yeah, I don't know. He decided to go for it. He wanted the gap to be as open as it could be, and then it just progressively closed in to the point where, I mean, at that point, you're 3 wide in the middle, and there's the contact. Huff is getting spun. The good thing is that I don't believe any 3 of the drivers picked up any significant race-ending damage, but possibly the avoidable incident. I'm sure race control will look at that one again as well.
Boy, I mean, that's what restarts can do, right? It can really devolve pretty darn quickly in one of these races, but I mean, again, struggling to almost find the words at this point with how much this race has gone off the rails in the last half hour or so. I mean, you had that pretty monstrous hit into the inside wall just on the exit of pit road that slowed down what was a great run, and then it's just been complete pandemonium. And again, this is not a points-paying race. This is not a championship finale or anything. This is a qualifying race. So do you reckon the fact that there's no points on the line could be why we're seeing some of this aggression really picking up? Or is it drivers trying to just probe on what's possible here at this track so they're more prepared going into the 24?
Well, there are 2 sides to the coin that I'm thinking of. First and foremost is that, yeah, there's no points involved, so you can go for it. Try to go for the win, go for track position. There's no point in laying back and not being aggressive and trying to be a standout driver in your class, or in the case for GTP, the overall race victory. But then the other side of it is, you know, maybe they're running hard because track position matters so much in the Daytona 24. It can basically create the difference between a driver that succeeds at the first stint and is able to put a decent gap and maybe be, you know, most 3rd or 4th place in their class, maybe be the leader with a solid gap when you do a driver change and your stint comes to an end. Or if you have trouble in this race and you start from the back, you know, how much headache you'll have trying to cut through the field, not only under raw pace, but then through strategy, trying to continuously think of other ways to beat the competition if you're not able to do so outright on the speedway. So I tend to lean more towards the intuition that track position matters so much in the main race next Saturday, but I'm not sure if it warrants the aggression that we've seen so far today, in which we've seen all these full course yellows come out. And honestly, it's created more harm for some drivers than good in any case. But I digress. These are race car drivers for a reason. You put them in a car and you tell them go race. They're going to go race, and they're going to do it to the best of their ability. It's just the unfortunate situation that the chaos has lended itself to dominate the storyline this afternoon.
One hour, 19 minutes, and 15 seconds of racing action left. As of right now, tell you what, why don't we take a rundown through the whole of the field here? We got a good chance here under the yellow flag, so we'll jump back and we'll show you who's all where as we get set to go racing once again here before too long. Right now, it is J.D. Daniel who, as it stands, currently leads the way in racing action here this afternoon for Pack Sim Sports. He is alongside Seth Neufeld, Tiago Mello right now running back in the 3rd place position for Lion GPX Bravo Snow. Twin BMW M Team Delta Racing drivers Felipe Silveira and Andre Vitor Diaz sit 4th and 5th. Alvaro Martinez World of Sim Racing Team. The drivers that won the 24 and the Ward last year currently running 6th. Selena Ward for VSCA Racing running in 7th. Mike Staneke running back in 8th. With Eras Racing's Brandon Clark in 9th. Daniel Perez Santiago back in 10th. And then Carlos Alonso Garcia Bayonne currently out of this race, along with Thomas Martin. Well, not out of the race. They are both back out onto the racetrack, albeit they are now both 5 laps down here.
And for the LMP2 class, it's the Monarch Racing Team, a group based out in Portugal. Vitor Pita, who's making his debut in VSCA competition. He's got the lead after staying out from an early pit call earlier in this race. Dominic Eisenberg for Twin Turn SRV by Rebecca Bornheim. The 23 machine is running second close by. Marcus Young, rescue skill by WMS team. They had to fight from a pit road penalty to begin this race. They started the event on pit road. They rallied back to track position through the full course yellows. They run in 3rd as of the moment. Rico Kohlmeyer making his first laps. He stepped in after the first pit stop for the V1M team that was running for the class lead in LMP2. They're 4th and 14th overall. Flight Level Racing 757 with Paolo Calvo. And behind the wheel of the machine is 5th. Track Limit Sim Racing Thunderbolt Alexander Schneider is 6th. Sebastian Eisenberg for the other Twin Turn SRS team is in the 22 machine from 7th. Matthew J. Luke for Fury Sim Sport in the LMP2 class is 8th. And Ricardo Anselmo, Grow Racing Team Blue, is technically supposed to be 9th. The other last car in the LMP2 class is slated to be the RTR RIC Team Racing 2 machine of Alfonso Race, who is disqualified and out of the event.
GT Pro is headed up by Vincent Herbier for Sim City Racing. And then, of course, Tomas Silva back in the number 2 spot for Virtual Power Sim Racing. Tyler Redden sits in 3rd with Saul Sanchez Flores back and 4th. Sam Gunstone running in the 5th place position with Nuno Vinagre, 25th overall and running 6th place here in the GT Pro category. Joao Pedro Teixeira for Epic Vans Pulsar Esports team sitting in 7th with Julka Tainio, Russ Bachelor's Racing VSCA running back in 8th. Tulema Tree Racing for Travis Linscomb Hatfield running in 9th with Curtis Schreiber for Double Stand Racing running back in 10th. From there, it is Errol Uriksoy for Ultra Motorsports Pro running 11th. Manuel Meyer back in 12th. Rodrigo A. Moreros back in 13th with Josh Goen in 14th. And then it is going to be Juan Figueroa Correa back in the 15th place spot. Aaron Beaver, 2 laps down, brings up the rear of the GT Pro category.
And in GTM behind them, all those drivers starts with the Aaron Beaver machine, Unitronic Fisher Motorsports. Behind them, the Superstar Racing Yellow Michael James. As the timing and scoring just continues to cycle out, a little bit hard to get through there, but for the most part, all these cars, Richard A. Bell, Connor Botting, Ryan Huff, we saw him spinning. We're going backwards here. Thomas Spencer, Marcus Taylor, Jesse Molina.
You might be looking at the wrong sheet there, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, on ATVO, it's a little bit hard. We can't separate the GTM and the GT Pro class, so you just got to figure out who's who. But Yanis Constantini, that's the leader for GTM right now. Michael Adamczyk for the Ford machine in the 747. That's part of the flying team as well. Will Robertson is 3rd. Smell Abe is going to be in 4th in the Aston Martin. Kevin Smith in P5. Jonathan Duncan, 6th place. Christopher Limprecht in 7th. Then Lucas Santos, the Porsche, in the 8th spot. And then behind them, Jesse Molina. Then we mentioned Marcus Taylor, Thomas Spencer, Ryan Huff, who suffered the spin to bring out the most recent full course yellow. Connor Bonding in the Ferrari, Richard Bell, and Michael James, the final of the GTM class. Sorry, Ron Nolan, it took me a little while there to get ready, but I was saying them backwards, so I was going last to first
there you
in
go.
GTM.
I was looking through. I was wondering, is my timing screwed up? Is his timing screwed up? I was like, what have we got going on here? It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I will ask for an excuse. It is a little bit hard on ATVO to see the official running order for GTM. But they separate the colors, and, I looked at the colors. I tried to gauge who was first there, and, it's a little wrong. But it's okay. It happens.
Well, the weaving begins, and because this yellow flag came out within 30 minutes of the last one, this is a quick full course yellow. So, of course, some stages are going to be bypassed as a result of that. But all the classes are sorted, and we should get the green flag next time by.
And I think for JD Daniel, I mean, it's been a great race, number one. Track position's always been there. Daniel has had the benefit alongside Pack SimSport of that entire team not to switch out any drivers yet. They will have to do so, I believe, soon. But for this team, they've been wonderful so far. They've held their own. And, you know, you think about these full course yellows and yellows in any sense of racing, irregardless of just sports car racing. Now, when you have constant yellows like this and breaks in the action, it's so hard to not only get back into your rhythm and be locked in once again, but then just continue whatever muscle memory you had built from the first several stints to which you ran green, because you have that constant stop and go. It's almost like the idea in queuing where people would rather be walking at a slow pace for 20 minutes than spend 20 minutes standing still. You know, when you have a stop and go, it makes you feel a little more frustrated. You don't feel as confident. You don't feel in that rhythm. But if you're casually walking at a pace, you can figure out where that pace is and then start maximizing where it's going to be. And for Daniel, they've been patient. They have been conservative so far, but enough to really stay ahead of a hard-charging Seth Neufeld, who I don't think is going to give him any easy situation in this final hour and 12 minutes.
Well, the field going to continue to battle this one out. JD Daniel still leading the way. Vitor Pita. Monarch Racing Team has been doing a phenomenal job up front in LMP2. They have continued to be the class of the LMP2 field. And despite Dominic Eisenberg's best efforts, Vitor Pita has been unstoppable at the front of the grid.
And by the way, Vitor Pita got approved to run as part of VSCA in December of last year, 2025. So less than a month ago is when Vitor Pita got approved to race. And then he registered with the team based in Portugal, the Monarch Racing Group. And for them to be in pretty much their first event of this 2026 season, to have meshed well together and to make that call, coming down pit road, having the full course yellow come out at the exact right time and telling themselves, we don't need to pit a second time. Let's stay out for the moment and gain that track position. I like the call. I think it makes sense given how chaotic this race has been. You can probably always bank on another full course yellow to come out and bring this field under that sense, because if you can and you come down pit road again, you can keep your track position at the front. So shout out, kudos to Monarch Racing Team and Vitor Pita to flip the strategy in their favor and have this track position more than halfway through.
The big story, of course, has been how many times we've seen the GT Pro and GT Anfields flip-flop. And right now, Michael Adamczyk with his Ford Mustang leads the way in GTN. Now, the Ford GT3s have been pretty big on the iRacing as of late, and they were the dominant car back in the FTR Advanced Trophy.ai GT Endurance Series, which will be making its return as well later on in 2026 as well. So these Ford Mustangs could be a big story over the course of the afternoon, but the green flag is back in the air, and JT Daniel will lead us around NASCAR 3-4 to the green flag, but Seth Neufeld closing in fast as they head down the front straightaway.
This is reminiscent of some of the first restarts of this race. Seth Neufeld in this BMW M-Team TSR GTP. They've been able to hang tight, and here he goes. Outside charge in turn one, looking for it on Daniel, but Daniel doesn't flinch into turn two.
Through turn two, through turn three, looking for the inside line for Neufeld. Not able to get the lunge going, though. JD Daniel continues to maintain the gap. A solid run for him. One car spinning off from behind. Oh, the big crunch behind. Two LMP2 cars off the road. One of them is Sebastian Eisenberg. Multiple cars going around, and the full course yellow is out again. Fourth one of the day, and this time we didn't even make it out of the infield.
And that was before the spot of trouble to bring out the first full course yellow of the afternoon. It was right after turn one. Eisenberg in a side-by-side battle with Alexander Schneider and Matthew J. Luke. And it just looked like Eisenberg lost the race car. Was going side-by-side. There wasn't any initial contact in turn one. He just went off of the racing line, and the car just stepped out from underneath him. And then right behind, I mean, it's a dangerous place to be perpendicular on the racetrack, blocking the whole entirety of the asphalt. And Ricardo Anselmo for the Grow Racing Team Blue ends up seeing him at the worst point, and then they end up T-boning against each other, and that just pretty much backs up everyone else. There's the look from Eisenberg. He's on the outside. He's trying to stay out of the way for too wide, and then the car just steps out from underneath him, and he's on the brakes. You see him, the smoke. That's him holding onto the brakes to get out of the way, and a hard hit from Anselmo behind.
Yeah, that is a brutal impact for the Grill Racing team there. And then he got hit by one of the GT pros. Look at the Aston Martin doing a fantastic job for Tyler Redden to whoa that car up and avoid any major contact.
And the driver that got into the spinning machine was Tomas Silva, driving for the lead in the GT class for Virtual Power Sim Racing. He not only got hit by Redden, but then ended up stuffing into the prototype, the LMP2 car in front.
There's one hit, and there is two. And again, we're going to get a ride on board here with that Aston Martin. I can't understate how good of a job Tyler Redden did here to slow this car for Blocko Motors. Take a ride on board with him. All of a sudden, you got car size in front of you, and heads up, look out. Oh, that could have been disastrous for arguably one of the dominant cars of the GT Pro category today.
I mean, you do pick up some damage, but the silver lining is that you got away with it mostly scot-free.
I don't think he did. That car looks unscathed.
All right, well, good news for them. He did make the contact, but got away with it. And thank goodness for them, they're able to stay in this race. And that's such a blind corner as well. You see the wall come up for the pit road access lane, and you see the smoke come up at the last second. So unbelievable job by the GT car to move out of the way for Tyler Redden, to be able to make that decision in the moment of time. And then right as the LMP2 cars were crashing in front of him, just being able to hop on the brakes, come to a dead stop, wait for them to scurry out of the way, and then just continue on. He's going to lose a couple spots track position-wise, but it's better to lose some spots on track and have a clean race car versus gaining any spots and then ultimately getting caused in the mess.
One driver that did not avoid successfully is Tomas Silva for Virtual Power Sim Racing, chasing the lead. Just didn't quite know where to go, and you saw a lot of indecisions there. Man. Fourth safety car of the day, or fourth full course yellow of the day, although arguably here, this all stems from that initial full course yellow that we had in the early stages. Right, where we, of course, had that massive crunch into the wall. And it's just been on from there.
Again, turn the chaos knob to 11 in this race.
No kidding.
Given how much carnage we've seen, even under yellow, just the troubles that drivers have ended up being the victims of, whether it's, you know, swerving and then spinning out the race car or stack ups that create further damage. We've seen it all this afternoon. This race has felt like a 24-hour in a sense, given all that's happened, the strategy, the flips in track position. And unfortunately, in this case, it pretty much takes out some of the best names in that LMP2 class with Eisenberg, Sebastian Eisenberg. Dominic has been the man up front for the most part, but Sebastian Eisenberg and that second twin-turn SRS team, I mean, they've been doing well for the most part in their category up until this point. And Ricardo Anselmo was just sort of getting back into the rhythm of things after what's been a bit of a wacky race for them as well. And it's just hard to think just how much has gone on in the span of this hour and 40 minutes, practically, hour 36.
The racing has been aggressive, would be putting it mildly, but there is still a long way to go here before this race draws to a close. We're going to take ourselves with one more step back. By the way, if you are one of the drivers here that is running in this race, we are more than happy to give a chat to you while we are under the full course yellow here. Feel free to stop on by and give your opinions on the field so far and some of your aspirations for the incoming season. But for the time being, yellow flag's out for the fourth time today. We're going to take a step back and be back in a moment with more on Green Flag TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV, where once again racing action is getting set to kick off, hopefully before too long here, as the fourth full course yellow is still very much in effect. Once again, my name is Ola Ramble alongside Kenneth Bueno, bringing you all the action from start to finish here this afternoon. A brutal opening race to the season so far, and this has very, very rapidly turned into a big race of attrition.
It has. It's mostly been all about surviving in an event where at the beginning of it all, you're thinking the main priority is get track position for next week's 24 Hours of Daytona. Now it has quickly spiraled into I need to make it to the end of this race no matter where I finish. It hasn't been mostly that case for the front end of the GTP pack with JD Daniels, Seth Neufeld, Thiago Mello, most of the top five apart from Andre Vitor Diaz. You know, those drivers have been clean of trouble, but across the LMP2, the GT class, and even the sprinkles of the GTP group, no one has been able to escape the trouble. And you mentioned it, Nolan, before we came back from this break, the sun is setting here in Daytona Beach. This track is going to change drastically when that sun comes down. The track temp is already starting to cool off. So for the most part, it's going to create a sense where a 76-degree track temperature is going to continue to creep down. The grip level is going to go up. And we mentioned in 24-hour races, the day is different from the night. Some are better in certain disciplines than others, so it's going to be tons of fun should we get more green flag racing.
Sunset anticipated to be around 5:39 p.m. in sim time. It is right now just past 4:47, so this race will be ending just as the sun sets behind the horizon. Officially under an hour of racing left to go, and if these guys want to get some racing in, they're going to have to figure out what's going on here, right? Because, I mean, these guys, they're running out of time if they want to fight for those spots in the Daytona 24.
Yeah, if there's any point to clean up the race, it's going to be now in this final hour. Reset mentally and tell yourself, hey, we still got a long way to go, but we've got a race to finish. We don't want to put ourselves in such a dire position to where we risk losing a spot in the 24 Hours of Daytona, at least a good one, or risk our race entirely here and then junk it and call it an end. So, yeah, really, now's the time to lock in, get ready in your rhythm, and most importantly, just stay green, stay alive in this race, to which we've seen fantastic battles across the scene. It's just been more so about who can keep it green. And most importantly, second round of pit stops under yellow will take place here at the front of this field. And crucial thing for the LMP2 class, Monarch Racing Team and V-Torpedo, they had stayed out on the last sequence. It appears they're going to be out again for the LMP2 class, and they will let the entirety of the group come in.
Except for Brandon Clark of Eris Racing, one of the lone GTVs that stays out here on this one, and he'll take up the lead of the race. Oh no, in the 55, JD Daniel has missed the box. Oh, it's disaster for Daniel. And this could be what costs him a win in the road before the 24.
That's a huge mistake. And remember, we saw that earlier on the yellow flag pit stop. He overshot it. It was much less disastrous. Now he's at an awkward angle. Surely he may lose the front spot of GTP. We know that Brandon Clark is staying out, but for first spot off of pit road, that is dire. More cars are coming out. There's the switch, and there may be the net lead for the overall race. Unbelievable.
JD Daniel jumps out of the car. Alan Parrish jumps in, and it's a long stop for Daniel. And that car has gone from leading the race to being 6th in class now after that. And we got a spin! Another spin! It's the 5th prototype car to spin under full course yellow conditions. Admittedly, 2 of those were a result of car-to-car contact. And has this been the result, potentially, oh, sorry, this was under green. Could this potentially be the result of spinning up the tires on the exit?
No, it was contact. So Oil Schwarz for that Red Lab Competizione team, he just came out of pit road. That was a driver change, by the way. And he was coming out side by side with what inevitably would be the Felipe Sonner car for BMW M Team Delta Racing. It's faint 3 wide, it becomes 2 wide, and I don't know if either of them thought they were going to clear each other or what, but they make the contact, and then sideways goes Schwarz, and he goes spinning through the grass.
That's just clumsy. That's clumsy. The thing that gets me about this is you have other drivers, right, that are here to act as spotters. Like, somebody's got to be telling these guys what's going on.
I mean, it just comes down to the drivers. Some of them have teammates and other people that are willing to be their live in-race spotter, can give them just a better scope of what's going on around them, and then just some rely on the iRacing system themselves, which, you know, you can make the discussion about how inefficient or efficient either method is, but it's just really tough there when you've got an exit like that that narrows up so quickly. It almost reminds me of the new Echo Park Speedway, how it widens up in the tri-oval or the quad-oval, and then when you go to turn 1, it really narrows up. It's obviously very different because this goes from 2 lanes to 1. It's a merge point. And so for Felipe Sonner making that contact with Schwarz, and they were just coming in from 2 different points, maybe neither of them willing to give up for the merge, and so it just creates more chaos, and there goes Felipe Sonner anticipating he would come down pit road again in that BMW prototype. Man, this race has just been littered with chaos. I think every moment in which we think maybe there's going to be a full class reset, then the chaos just continues to show us that it's always going to be present. That's the funny part.
And critically, you got 2 of the BMW M Team cars, 2 of the 3 that have black flags on top of that. Michael Simpson and Felipe Sonner both forced to the pit road. That is what was 6th and 9th in class. The only car that didn't get a penalty was Daniel Campos from the Delta Racing crew. He is right now running 5th place in class. So again, like, it just keeps on going. Sorry, that was 3rd place in class for Simpson, who does now have a black flag. The 2nd place runner, GGP, does not. So it just, it keeps on going more and more and more. And dare I say it, these full course yellows have been almost more drama-filled than the actual racing.
Yeah. Well, when the racing begins, it almost becomes fun because you see all of the competition. We got good racing, but yeah, you're right. The drama really ensues when the yellows happen. It's just a blend of merge points and miscommunication and just random things happening. It's a tale of the bizarre sequences here at Daytona, and it's been wild to cover nonetheless. I don't think any of us, including the driver base, were expecting this race to derail so far into the yellows that we've had today. But, I mean, nonetheless, we're here. We've covered it. It's just been wild, to say the least.
I think a lot of this has in part to do with the fact that this is a sprint race. The mentality you have going into a sub 3-hour race is way different than, you know, a 6, a 10, a 12, a 24-hour race. It's a lot more frantic, a lot more manic in a sense, and I feel like that's contributed to a lot of what we've seen so far today. I'm willing to bet that the actual Daytona 24 is going to be nothing like what we're seeing here this afternoon. And I know that's ironic, considering I said this is an idea of a prelude of what we can expect to see in the 24, but I think the 24 drivers are going to be a lot more composed. Everyone's thinking long-term. No one's going to be making these desperate 3 and almost 4 wide moves that we have seen in this race, you know, 1 hour into a 24-hour race.
Yeah, I mean, when you're an hour into this race, you're basically through halfway, and then you're thinking about what am I going to do to put myself in position to win, and the desperation starts to kick in when, especially you're in this final hour, even final 30 minutes of the race. But you're right, 24 hours, it's going to be a grand scale, so for the driver base, they're probably not going to be as desperate to make moves or be less aggressive, and it'll more string out into the strategy-filled sequences that we've seen at other Daytona 24s across the sim and in real life. However, this race was described by League admins as one that is short enough to be a sprint and not to feel too long, but a race long enough to where you're thinking about strategy and almost getting into that endurance mindset. They wanted this to be a fair balance between having it be a sprint race and having drivers go at it for the win on a sprint format versus having it be long enough to where you're not necessarily getting comfortable with being too aggressive. It's just that for all of the drivers, given how this race has unfolded, and as these full course yellows continue to develop, it's more time you're spent under the yellow. That means for drivers that are further back in track position, they're going to be more aggressive, and it just continues this revolving door of attrition.
The class sorting phase is currently underway as you see some of the GT cars starting to be waved around the iRacing pace car. This race, man, it's had its ups, it's had its downs, and we're hoping to finish this one on a very big up here. 51 minutes are left, and we are anticipating to go green before that timer hits 40.
And look at the way this field is laid out right now. You've got the Aries Racing Brandon Clark car, who's the only UK member out of his Aries Racing team, by the way, that's running in this GTP entry. Then Monarch Racing Team, Vitor Pita, this Portuguese group that still remains out on the racetrack without coming down pit road. And then it's V1M11, Rico Kohlmeyer stepping in, Track Limit Sim Racing Thunderbolt with Alexander Schneider. That's 1, 2, 3 in the LMP2 class. And then you have what was the ultimate shift in the tide, where JD Daniel made his mistake on pit road, and Daniel Campos for BMW M Delta Racing stepped in forward to technically be in the GTP lead, although it's technically not. You have a healthy mix of strong race cars in 2 different classes when we go back green. I'd imagine that blend point at the exit of turn 1, it's not going to be a place where I envy to be in, that's for sure.
Alan Paris has a lot of work ahead of him, right? This is, you know, to kind of reference baseball here for a little bit, this is like when the starter gives up a couple of runs and then the closer has to come in and try to salvage, right? I mean, especially after a good performance from said starter. I mean, JD Daniel was leading the entirety of the GTP field all night long, and yet it is pit road where the devastating mistake comes to send that car careening back at a 7th place in the category. And that's why, you know, they call pit road the make or break place in endurance races, because all it takes is one of those mistakes. And in GTP cars like these, where it can be hard to close up to the cars in front of you, it's not going to be easy to make up 6 spots in under an hour.
It's not. And then when you point in the merge point with the LMP2 machines, it's ultimately going to create a much bigger buffer between Brandon Clark and everybody else in this group, let alone who Paris has to be in order to catch up to Brandon Clark for the overall and GTP lead in the first place. So it's the biggest misstep that we've seen from PAC SimSport so far, but this is really going to be where they can dig deep and make their money. We haven't seen them pressured all race long, apart from some minor sequences with Seth Neufeld in the beginning portions of this event. but for the most part, they have been in cruise control mode, even through the full course yellows. So I'm really interested to see where Pack Sim Sport and Alan Paris is able to charge this team back to the front, what this machine handles like in dirty air, most importantly, and how they get through all that traffic.
You mentioned it's, you know, one of their only missteps this race. I would argue it is their only misstep so far this race. And I, like you said, I'm curious to see how they're going to handle this one as well. I'm also curious to see if Vitor Pita is going to be able to contend still for the LMP2 class lead. Because remember, I mean, Monarch Racing has been doing a good job so far up front, but it's also important to remember that, you know, for much of the last hour or so, we've been running under full course yellow conditions. So Vitor Pita has been relatively uncontested so far for the LMP2 class lead. And Rico Kohlmeyer for V1M, he's right back up to second. And that dominant car in LMP2 right behind these guys in second wants to get back to the front.
He does, and they've been such a strong team so far this afternoon. They've been probably the most consistent LMP2 team in this race, to be fair. Kohlmeyer, I mean, he was in and out of the top two, just kind of bouncing around the top end of the LMP2 class, but the V1M group have been very consistent and composed given how chaotic this race has been. I'm just really interested to see where Vitor Pita ends up strategy-wise, because he's been in this car for so long. They're now what's going to be their 27th lap of his stint. Obviously, he's been saving fuel through these yellows, but is it enough to get you to the end of what's going to be 47 minutes left in this race? I'd imagine not. And for Monarch Racing, they have to come down. So I was just a little confused to see them stay out on the recent stop, because at most maybe you lose a spot or two, but given how the pit stops have gone for a bulk of the LMP2 class, Vitor Pita was probably not going to lose the LMP2 lead. So I don't know where the call comes out from. I mean, the other drivers stay out as well, so maybe that's why he was led to believe that they were going to stay out and he was going to lose more track position. But we'll see where they file out, especially knowing that there's a hard-charging GTP class right behind them.
And then, of course, you have the GT fields, right? GT Pro has had quite a bit of shuffling going on in the last hour or so under these codes, not these code 60, sorry, these full course yellows. Grow Racing Team now with Nuno Vinegre currently leads the way in GT Pro. And then it's Double Stint Racing's Curtis Tiber right behind them that's trying to make a run. They, of course, are two drivers that did come down under this latest full course yellow, but Nuno Vinegre is not. So Grow Team Racing White is not going to be up at the front of this field for too long here. That car is due for a pit stop here in the next, I would argue, half an hour or so. And then, of course, BMW M Team TSR GTM, headed up by Jesse Molina, now leads the way in GTM. They are trying to fend off Wastegate Racing's Neil Forbes, who is taking over from Selena Ward.
Things have changed a lot in the GT class, and that's what makes it so fun. All the different leaders and all the different teams that have taken spots at the front end of the field. Yeah, I'd imagine this is going to be the closest fight we see, frankly, for the entire race with 45 minutes to go. And a beautiful-looking number 33 that's looking to patrol that Mercedes up to the front. A car that someone has been doubted by some on the iRacing sim. You know, I remember before they got that update for the GT3 2020, the Mercedes was seen as one of the bottom feeder cars of the GT category, alongside all the other new manufacturers and new cars that were coming out. When that BMW came out, I mean, that was a huge shift in the tide. Everybody was running that car. Then when the Mustang came out and the Corvette came out, everyone started running it. You know, the Porsche has had its fair share of time being that lead car, but ever since that Mercedes got the update, it's been basically on par with the rest of the field. So for these guys and Forbes and all these other drivers that are looking to make headway at the front, I think that's going to be the most fun we see in the back end of the field tonight.
The LMP2s now separating themselves out from the GTPs. We have already seen the GT Pros and AMs get themselves sorted, which means another restart is in fact imminent. I think these drivers have got to be getting a little bit worried though, right? I mean, with how these full course yellows have gone, I mean, if we get another one within the back, 20, 25 minutes, you could be looking at the end of the race at that point.
Yeah, now's not the time to wait, and now's not the time to end up in another full course yellow. And the last thing these drivers want to do, especially if you're behind the mark on any of these classes, is to be under yellow and have your spot frozen. You literally cannot do anything until that green flag comes back out. So they're going to have to hope they run this race all the way into the brink. And I'd imagine that it's going to be possibly more aggression out of this group, whether that's for better or for worse. We'll end up finding out, but for the most part, it's going to lend itself to some really keen racing. And this is where the strategy comes in. If you've made your bet, this is the time to lie in it. If you've stayed out this far, and maybe you're just going to teeter on that edge of the fuel window.
Uh-oh, we may have just had an issue. Michael Simpson is tumbling down the order from BMW M Team TSR. And I believe they've just had a connection drop with one of their drivers. And the dramas continue. Oh, they're back. It's struggling, though. Michael Simpson trying to regain connection before that car is reset to pit road. It was in for a few frames, but then it blinked out again. But Simpson's having some major technical problems right now.
Yeah, it's really tough. And remember on iRacing, they came out with a recent update that if you have connection problems for a sustained period of time, iRacing's going to put you on pit road. They're going to black flag you. They'll do anything in their power to kind of take you out to the side so that you don't affect the other competition in front, because you've seen blinking create issues when there's nearsighted racing and potential contact that's registered, even though it's technically not there because the driver's in and out of the server. For Simpson and that team, I really hope they're able to get back in this thing, but they have been classified so far as grayed out on timing and scoring, which means they are failing to get back into the session. I'd imagine it's going to be a long road ahead for one of those final GTP teams. They're back in it right now on the back straightaway. You saw a bit of that smoke. That was them coming back into the picture. But hopefully it doesn't create for any further issues for that team, especially now in this final leg.
Still no green flag this time by, but with these drivers now starting to weave across the racetrack, end of next lap, we should be getting this race back underway. So that means just under 40 minutes of racing will be left of the 2 hour and 40 minute roar before the 24. Brandon Clark still leads the way. Danny Campos second. Gabriel Peckley third in the GTP category. Behind Pita, you got Kohlmeyer and Schneider. Behind Vinagre, you got Triber and Tainio. And, of course, behind Molina, it's Forbes and Ketty. I like the broad mix of manufacturers. So often in endurance races, you see a lot of drivers favoring one particular class. But with all the BOP and fuel limitations and even engine power limitations that VSCA puts into these drivers, be careful, Brandon. But they put in so much work into figuring out a fair balance, which ensures that no one car is better than the other, making it a more of a test of driver's skill than the right car. We don't talk about the LMP2s, though.
Yeah, we don't. But it's so fascinating to see this constantly developing work in progress for endurance racing, especially here on iRacing, because they just constantly add updates to these machines. It might be one of the most updated classes and groups of cars that we see out there on the sim. GTs are constantly getting their fair share of updates for setups and tire wear and aerodynamics. BOPs and GTPs are also getting their fair share of updates, especially as new manufacturers and new cars get released on the sim. I can remember several points in time, you can almost distinguish them in eras, where a specific GTP car was the most dominant, that you'd see all the top drivers in top split running that manufacturer because they would have the edge in those weekly official races versus others. I remember when the Porsche came out, it was like that. When the Acura came out, it was like that. When the Cadillac V-Series R was the mainstay leader of the GTP class, that was the front runner. Same thing with the BMW. All of the new cars ended up having some kind of edge on the competition. And I think it's a kudos to iRacing to fight this constant battle of equaling these cars out to where everybody has a choice on the sim and they could be as competitive as the next guy. And like you said, it's been fantastic to see the diversity across all of these classes, especially at the front, where each manufacturer has had their fair share of advantages in this race, and it's allowed for some really good spot changes at the front as we're ready to get green.
And here we go, green flag back in the air as we hightail it back towards turn number one. And Brandon Clark getting a good launch from the field. Meanwhile, Vitor Pita with a black flag and its problems with the LMP2 leader as Pita is going to be forced into pit road as a result. It is devastating. Here comes the third place runner, Alexander Schneider, for his last stop of the day.
Oh no, that is heartbreaking for Vitor Pita and the Monarch Racing team. They've stayed out so long in this race. We're gonna wait for official word from what race control tells us. But for the most part, it probably is given that Vitor Pita stayed out so long. Car in trouble at the exit of turn 1, and the LMP2 lead will switch hands. Rico Kohlmeyer in control with under 40 minutes to play.
That is Ryan Serlich for twin turn SR-V by Rebecca Bornheim. That has gone off the road, but no problem so far. Up front, Brandon Clark continues to lead the way ahead of Daniel Campos as they fire back to the oval. Under 40 minutes of racing to go, and it is on.
And the difference in laps is 17 from the leader in Clark versus the second place machine in Campos. All these drivers for the most part pitted about 6 or so laps ago. So with this hard charging BMW right on the tail of the Porsche, it could be a big change coming into NASCAR 3 and 4. There's a car on the outside of the Le Mans chicane. We're gonna stay green for now. Great exit by Clark, but here comes Campos for the draft.
Tucks into the slipstream, trying to get a run going, but Brandon Clark with a lower downforce setup is very much pulling clear. And there you see Ollie Schwartz for Red Lab Competizione off the road, but he is at what would normally be, I do believe, a safe tow-away point. No, that is not a tow-away point that he is by. We'll have to see if this ends up being a yellow flag here. I hope it is not, but right now stopped off the road, and it looks like he has actually found the tires down there as well.
Everyone's praying that it's not going to be a tough point there, and it looks like for V1M and Rico Kohlmeyer, they are also coming down pit road, so they will give up the LMP2 lead to Paolo Calvo and the Flight Level Racing 757 group. They had also stayed out, so possibly this could be the call that they cannot make it until the end of this race.
And it looks like Track Limits Racing Thunderbolt was able to get the tow back to pit road, so we are going to be able to see drivers make their way into the box as Seth Newfeld for BMW M-Team TSR GTP tumbles down the order now. And boy, a tough break for the number 25.
It's not how you want this race to go, especially given that we're under 35 minutes. This is the sprint to the end. This is where the strategy has culminated until this point, and you're just running for the win. It's been tough to see that happen, but for the most part, we've seen fantastic racing, and we're going to see a battle for the overall race lead. Entering turn 1, the Lion GPX Bravo snow machine of Gabriel Peckley's right on the tail of Brandon Clark to the first corner. He'll swing to the outside. Just in the final 35 minutes of this race is where we have the battle for the lead in turn 1.
Trying to go for around the outside. No move done there for Gabriel Peckley. Brandon Clark trying to cut back to the inside, and Brandon Clark has got it through turn 2. Now back up through turn 3. Peckley looks for the outside again into the International Horseshoe. Oh, a bit of a twitch there for Clark on the way into turn 3. And that could open up the door for Peckley to swing back through around the outside. Trying to get the lunge going, and he's going to have a run. It's now a game of chicken down to the kink. Peckley blinks first, and Clark holds on still into the West Horseshoe.
I mean, Clark is just surviving right now. He's on the oldest set of tires compared to everyone else in this GTP field. He had the track position, but then you think to yourself, how long can you sustain this defense for the entirety of the run until those fresh tire machines start making their way forward and start giving you the fight of your racing life. There's a look on board with Clark. Look at how far Peckley is, and don't count out Niklas Peterson. He's been one of those drivers to be at the front. He is 1-3 overall, to the last 3 overall VSCA SportsCar Daytona 24s, being that clutch final driver to the checkered flag. He's in for this team and still within a shot, at least a second or so between those 3 machines.
Still a lot of highly contested battles as well throughout the GT categories as contenders continue to battle that out amongst each other, but Peckley continued to close in a 10th and a half, and now Clark's waving back and forth trying to break the draft as they make their way through NASCAR 3 and 4. Peckley's going to have to do this one the long way, though, into turn number 1. Once again, pulls alongside, trying to get the drive going here down into turn number 1. Can he get the drive in there? Trying to outbrake around the outside, not able to get it, and Clark continues to hold on.
Wonderful defense by Clark. He's keeping the inside pegged so that Peckley doesn't have any of the opportunity. He used to swing to the outside. He's doing so in some of the toughest corners to make outside passes here at this infield road course. That international horseshoe, hard to make an outside charge unless you just have so much grip to your liking. They're catching up on a lapped car. And Peckley's got to make this move quick because Peterson is hanging right on their tail, close in the kink, entering turn 5 in the Western Horseshoe. Can it be the crossover complete? There's Peckley down to the inside. And they'll make contact, spinning the race leader. And Peterson makes way to the inside.
Oh, it's dramas as Nicholas Pedersen tries to battle his way through for VSCA Racing. Gabriel Peckley trying to fight back, and he drops back to second again. But it's complete disaster for Brandon Clark, who got absolutely dumped for the race lead. And that is going to be another controversial incident that'll have to be looked at post-race. Gabriel Peckley looking for the inside, thought about it, backs out though right as they approach LMP2 traffic in the chicane.
Oh my goodness, can it get any more dramatic than that, Nolan, in the final 32 minutes of this roar before the 24? Pedersen hanging back, Peckley making the contact with Clark, and that is all she wrote for the Aries Racing car that was just hoping to stay up front on the oldest set of tires in the GTP class. And they're going to take another look at it, but Peckley is still on the tail of Peterson. Before this race is all said and done, look at all this GT fighting in the back. This is all for GT Am, GT Pro, all of them within range of each other. And the longest line of cars right behind the Rusty Spatulas Racing VSCA machine of Duca Tainio in the 112.
Battling for third place here in the GT Pro category amongst themselves, SimCity Racing, Virtual Power Sim Racing, World of Sim Racing, and Blocko Motor, all in the fight here for the final podium position in GT Pro. Duca Tainio trying to stay out in front, but Carson Allen for SimCity Racing is looking to run him down. You got Luis Cunha still in the mix here as well. He's also trying to close the gap, and we could see Carson Allen actually coming under fire himself rather than being able to go on offense here in a turn 1.
Got to be pinpoint accurate in your moves, and there goes Allen. Dive deep in turn 1, going to bring the fellow Porsche of Luis Cunha with him in the middle of the corner. Fantastic textbook move, but look how many cars, Nolan, are in this stretch. Maybe 5 or 6 cars that are right in the thick of things, right around each other. Huge dive to the inside. Marco Pereira tried to move on Tainio, and it denied itself at the exit of the horseshoe.
Boy, the fights continue to escalate here in GT Pro as World of Sim Racing team trying to run to Rusty Spatulas. Oh, heads up, look out as Christian Malcherik from the Matco Vision Motorsports crew sends a big diver around the outside, but he's not able to get a move done on the Aston Martin into the International Horseshoe. And right now, Ian Lawrence Brown continuing to maintain his ground. What a battle that we are seeing here in GT Pro for third.
And this is absolute insanity, pandemonium across the GT Pro class, and probably going to be reflective of what we actually see in the 24 Hours of Daytona next Saturday, because these guys have been close all race long, full course yellow or not. The competition has been tight, it's been fierce, and no one's giving the edge to each other, especially now that we're under 30 minutes to go in this roar. So everything is on the table. Another desperate shot by the Blocko Motore machine. Ian Lawrence Brown taking a look at Marco Pereira, that World of Sim Racing team entry, looking on the outside of Duca Tainio again. These two had it in the International Horseshoe side by side, and this is where the Corvette is lining up the horsepower down the straightaway, and in the trial we're right to make this move. And Ian Lawrence Brown, I think, is just happy to just wait.
Oh!
He's going to stay near 3 wide in turn 1.
Oh, that's a big move for Blocko, but no room to make it work. So the Corvette pulls the move off around the outside. And Duca Tainio dropping back into the 6th place position. Ian Lawrence Brown maintains his run to 7. There's a huge launch down the inside from Christian Malcherik. He's almost going to catch the Aston Martin in the International Horseshoe, but just keeps it out of the door. And still, Blocko Motore hangs on.
Got to be really accurate, you know, all time figuring out what's going to be the best strategy, what's the best line in this flat portion of the infield road course. You got the 2 horseshoes, very distinct corners that you got to wrap yourself around and put your gas down first. And for all these cars, that's where they're finding this edge. But like I mentioned, all comes down to how you can set up these long straightaways. Right here, this left-hand corner, you catch the grass, it could be a little treacherous, especially with the exit as well. If you go too wide, it may lose you a bit of time. And then down the straightaway, NASCAR 1 and 2, all this high-end 31-degree banking in the corners. And then down that long back straightaway before the Le Mans chicane, you end up using the draft. And there's trouble in the Western Horseshoe right as the GTP leaders are coming around. Caden Wirtz, the Daily Car Market Aries racing car, put himself in the grass, and it looks like there was some contact and some help.
That's Daily Car Market Aries Racing that may have gone around. Looks like Gabriel Peckman's had a problem as well because he has lost the lead. He's back to fourth. Nicholas Pedersen has taken over the lead of the Roar.
Yeah, I remember we saw those two get around each other, but that aforementioned incident with the Lamborghini is what got Gabriel Peckley involved. He had to scurry out of the way, went into the grass at the wide end of the corner, and there it is, the spin. You'll see the blue car coming into your frame down the left side. Yeah, he was right in it. So he ended up in the grass, ended up slideways, and look at all of that GTP traffic coming by.
That was, yet again, more work of a clumsy rejoin. Haven't talked about GTM too much since the restart, but here we go. Jason Kenny and Stevie Amantidis fighting it out for second place here in GTM. It's yet again another Aston Martin, but this time fighting it out with some American horsepower with the Ford Mustang right in front.
We mentioned how close that GT Pro battle is. I mean, it's just as fierce here in GTM. All these cars so close to each other, waiting for that GTP to get around. As that's Peterson, the race leader, so got to be really careful around what's going to be the driver that's trying to hang on for the next 26.5 minutes to win this Roar before the 24 and have that pole-sitting spot for the Marconi Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona next weekend. It's going to be fun to see what Amanatidis does here for Bloco Motore AM. See if he can try and catch up a little closer. I'd imagine it just gets more dangerous so when you have all this GTP traffic, first, second, third, fourth, all of them fighting for the overall win.
Fight for fifth is on in GTP, just approaching that same battle that we were just looking at there. This is Alan Paris trying to fight back, or trying to fight against Mark Skirschel here for Albrecht Motorsports. And they are right now caught behind one of the Mercedes in the GTM category. Going to look around the outside. This fight under a tenth of a second between the 96 and the 55.
The closest battle with the GTPs that we've seen for just a little while, apart from all of that at the front of this field. But all this draft is going to play itself to what's going to be some really crucial makes in turn one, because you see all these cars, one on the outside, other one's going up top. They hop on the brakes a bit earlier. They've got less downforce overall. So you've got to find your lane, and Paris is really going to spearhead this effort. That's where Churchill can take advantage. If there's any hiccup from the Pack Simsport machine into the International Horseshoe, they're going to follow in the same tracks. So the Cadillac's not going to make the move now. You just got to weigh your options as the faster car, and I think that's what comes with the mental toll of being in the GTP class. The trade-off is you got a shot at the overall victory, but the other end of the situation is you've got to cut through all this traffic in a smart and consistent manner without losing time to any traffic in front or behind you. And speaking of which, for Churchill, Daniel Campos, remember he was fighting for second in GTP earlier on today. Well, now he's got width of the drivers in front. So this battle for what's going to be the top 5 in GTP is going to get a lot more scintillating.
And then further down the field in GT Pro, Russ's Bachelor's VSCA's Juca Taineo has really dropped off the wagon here, now fighting for the 8th place spot after formerly fighting for 3rd place. And in the fire line of Jack Hedgecox for Going Racing. Now, Going, the last time we saw them on Green Flag TV, these guys were dominant in the LMP2 category, and they effectively took a clean sweep. I believe it ended up being 5 straight wins in a row for Going Racing in 2024. So I'm frankly a bit surprised at the running back here in GT Pro. Maybe they just wanted a new challenge, and well, they've certainly got it here as they're fighting. Look at the run around the outside for 8th.
Yeah, Gowen's that name you always see in LMP2, dominating 2024 champion of this 24 Hours of Daytona in that LMP2 class. So you almost think it's a bit surprising. Why would you step down to the GT category? Look how close that is. Going Racing, and Hedgecock's almost getting a tap there from one of the GTP cars as they're all just slowing up to make way in the International Horseshoe. That was Gabriel Peckley. Look at all these cars, Nolan.
That's a sight to see right there, and that's a terrifying sight to see that, especially if you're one of the course marshals here. And what that is all allowed is for Marco Silva to close in as Hedgecock is being pushed out of the way. Now, I'm not going to go out and say that one class is better than the other, right? Because we're not saying that, you know, oh, GT Pro is an inherent downgrade from, say, LMP2 or GTP, because the truth is they're not. It's just different styles of racing, and that's why I think, hey, maybe they just wanted a unique challenge, and I can't blame them. It gets boring sometimes being up at the front all by yourself.
You know, I'm going to apologize for framing the question the way I did. I almost carved it with a negative connotation. Why would you move down? But you can move down for that, like exactly you said, a new challenge, more competitive field. You want to dominate in many ways than just one. So, you know, maybe try something new. Take a shot at these GT cars and see what this racing brings you throughout the course of the season. So, honestly, yeah, embracing the challenge for Going Racing. I think that's a positive thing about iRacing. You can always switch these categories whenever you want as a team. You register, whether it be LMP2 or GT or GTP. If you want to go at it for the overall victory, you can always change what you want to do. And for Going Racing, they're trying to make use of it now, 10th in their class. As it stands, we got another entry down pit road, and that might actually be Gabriel Peckley, who is in contention for the GTP lead.
It is Gabriel Peckley that is currently in pit road. You're watching the battle for 6th here in GTM, but that is going to have to take a back seat, unfortunately, because it's picking up now. Marco Silva and Jack Hedgecock continue to go at it with one another with GTP traffic in the mix, and oh boy, that GTP car getting muscled out wide actually as a result. He got off of the SS Racing, also coming down pit road. And boy, these GT Pros are just fighting it out like there's no tomorrow with just over 20 minutes to go.
And by the way, the battle for the GT Pro lead is closing up. It just opened up a little bit with the Pack Sim Sport GTP getting around, but Luis Cunha is putting up a show on João Pedro Teixeira. These two cars have been close enough to each other to make a valid fight out of it. We're watching all the fighting behind them for GT Pro and GTM, but these two have been close enough to each other where they can create some fireworks in the final 21 minutes of this race, especially down this back straightaway, the Le Mans chicane, where Cunha is able to get a really good run through the curbs, staying out of trouble. There's a car spinning in front of them, though, and it's the Pack Sim Sport machine of Alan Paris.
Oh boy, and so Alan Paris can have issues. There he is, stopped on the outside of the racetrack. That's an extremely dangerous spot to be stopped, but that car is mobile. They have not requested a tow, I don't think. I think what he's got to do, he's got to gas it up and drive into the runoff of the chicane to get that car turned back around.
I mean, he's waiting for the traffic to clear. That's valid, because if he goes backwards, he's going to get disqualified and black flagged by just the iRacing sim themselves. So he's waiting for the right point of contact and enough space to turn himself around and get back going. But look at the cars. It's a huge line. They're all close enough to each other where Paris really can't move.
He'll have a gap
without
here,
creating some kind of dangerous rejoin. This next car is going to come up. It's going to give him the time to spin around.
There he goes.
So good news for Paris is that he's going to come around, be under the racing line, and not in the danger of anyone else hitting him. So that's a good sign for Pack Sims where they keep their car intact. But full course yellow could have almost come out there.
This is a spin from Ultra Motorsports Pro's Aero Urixoy just seconds before that in GT Pro, and then this was the big step out that Pack Racing had, and wow, hopped over the curbs there, and oh, he does catch the wall with the left front, but evidently not enough to be race-ending damage for that GTP. But how the mighty have fallen in your GTP field.
Yeah, it's such a devastating point where you realize to yourself the race is unraveled in ways you really don't want it to be, with JD Daniel dominating this race and led it from the word go for the most part, and just the way the pit road mistake cost them track position and just how much the track position loss overall has affected the shape of their race. Adding in Alan Paris to step in for Daniel and try to take this thing all the way home. I mean, it's been tough, heartbreaking for them for sure, but those are going to be lessons learned for the overall 24 hours of Daytona. That's going to be their biggest point of emphasis alongside the rest of this field. What can they do in those 24 hours to stand out amongst the rest? They have some points of contact where they realize in traffic maybe they have some things to work on as a team. But at the front, they're really, really solid with J.D. Daniel leading the charge. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that team and those group of drivers back in the mix of things for the 24 hours next week, and probably in a good place as well.
Fight for six is on still in the GTP category. There is Matco Fisher Motorsports' Christian Malcherik coming down for his final stop of the day. In LMP2, the battle for second is actually closing in as well, as you've got yourself Rescue Skill by WMS right now fighting it out with Twin Turn SR-V by Debecca Bornheim. So it's Johannes Witt fighting it out with Ryan Surlich in the turn one. Or at least it was, as Surlich got caught behind lap traffic.
Yeah, the traffic is a killer there off of turn one. Narrow point of the racetrack. It's hard to stand out. It's hard to really step out in front. And you don't want to take that risk of cutting through the traffic and narrow points of the track where you can make just slivers of contact and it creates a ton of trouble. So it's a smart decision overall by Ryan Surlich. He knows if he's fast enough to catch up to Johannes Witt, that battle is going to quantify at some point. It is going to make shape, sooner than later. So smart IQ decision to stay out for the traffic, wait to clear them, and then put the pressure on Witt once again.
The lights have officially flicked on above the Daytona International Speedway, turning this into a night race by definition now, as now 17 and a quarter minutes to go. The battle for second still tight in GTM as well. And a change in the lead of GT Pro as here comes Luis Cunha into the box, allowing Teixeira to pick up the lead of GT Pro.
Solid fighting all day long with those drivers and the Epic Guns Pulsar Esports team. I mean, they've had a journey to the front, that's for sure. They started off this race at 34th overall, and that was kind of deep in the GT Pro class. They were just moving their way up. Now they're 18th. So it's been wonderful to see their comeback journey throughout this race and how they've been able to stay out of trouble for the most part. As you get a good look on board of Ryan Surlich, this LMP2 battle that we're starting to see reignite for second. I mean, it's again been all about survival, keeping all four tires on the racetrack, and if you can do that in the way the context of this race has developed over the course of the past hour and 20 minutes, that's really going to give you a reward. And again, all of this for the qualifying spot in next week's race. So these guys, the fruits of their labor.
We got one car around to the back of the field. Oh my goodness, that was could have been a nasty rejoin there, as that is the 77 car Virtual Power Sim Racing Luis Cunha, who has just gone around in a black flag to boot.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, Cunha was running second in GT Pro. Remember that. He was running for the GT Pro lead. So he had been in contention to be the GT Pro winner and just got tapped in the horseshoe.
And then watch this right here. This is going to pull across the racetrack and nearly into the path of an Acura.
And in the several iRacing Rolex 24s that I've run in my sim racing career, nothing is more scary than, number one, cutting through traffic, but the second thing is getting back on the racetrack if you spill or make a mistake or get hit by somebody. It's rejoining at the right time so that you don't end with anyone else getting in danger and possibly taking you or other cars out of the mix. So that was just a little bit close-knit call as the fight for second in LMP2 has switched hands. Ryan Surlich getting around a simple pass, but he's got it in turn one, and Witt's going to bring the fight back into the corner.
Yeah, Surlich trying to hold on to Johannes Witt, trying to fight back, but he's got a GTP right on his heels, so I don't think he's going to be able to really do much about it, frankly. That GTP is going to want it to get through here. That is fifth place, by the way. Gabriel Peckley for Lion GP, and Bravo Snow trying to fight his way through the order. So Peckley going to fight his way past the battle for second in the LMP2 category. You also got the battle for fifth in LMP2 that is closing in. This is Michael Williams and Corey Cursone fighting out. This is Track Limit Sim Racing Thunderbolt against V1M. One of the dominant cars of the LMP2 field today is involved in this fight.
That was a switch from Kohlmeyer to Corey in this 11 car, so that was the recent switch under one of the latest full course yellows and pit stops. Yeah, this is going to be a good field right here. I mean, maybe this could be the time we see all of these drivers finally end up splitting apart from each other. We see more of the long-term racing we would see in the 24 next week. And these are where the battles start to get very fun to watch because it's just 2 cars, 1 track. You have a lot of traffic in there as well, but if you're able to have the moments in which you've got clean racing track, I mean, you can just do anything with the driver in front. You can tango with each other, have a synchronized dance, do whatever you can to gain track position, and that's really where the magic of endurance racing comes out over long stretches of time. And I want to ask you, Nolan, do you think we're going to see this level of chaos in the 24? Because we've seen a lot today.
I don't think in the first half. I think in the last hour we might. I mean, the final 10 minutes, if you haven't seen it from the last 24 that we covered, it was something. Let's put it that way. It was really something. And one of the wildest final 10 minutes to any race that I've seen, let alone a 24-hour endurance race. Definitely one to check out. But yeah, I think we could be in for a bit of a thriller in the 24 here as well. You still got Michael Williams and Corey Cursone trying to fight it out. Bit of a headlight flash as the number 11 car is saying to the Porsche, hey, stay out of the way. We're fighting for a spot.
Yeah, that's the example of the headlight flashing that is more the courteous than the more disrespectful when it's in between classes, faster versus slower. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a nod and just letting you know that they're going to be there, they're going to be moving around you, just so they have the idea of where to be. And then the faster traffic will just get around. But at this point in the race, I mean, this is where things are really going to start to shape. And all these battles for GTM, GT Pro are really starting to develop in their own way as the Epic Vans Pulsar Esports team continues to lead things on the GT Pro side of things. Blocco Motore, I mean, they've been through a lot in different classes, AM and Pro so far. They've been through a lot in this race. And for them, with Stevie Amanatidis, he's done a great job at holding on position. But it's 8/10 back to Jesse Molina, although they're going to be in a battle for second. So I think that's going to be good news for the Blocco Motore group because they've got a bit more elbow room to work around.
Yeah, they were going to be under fire there for a hot second as Daniel Gralti gets around Jesse Molina. But Amanatidis still has a lot of a fight ahead of him if that Mercedes can close the gap to the Aston Martin. I can tell you right now, that gap was down to just 0.2 of a second last time by the bus stop chicane. So these guys behind, they have the potential to reel that gap in.
Oh yeah, by the way, Daniel Gralti of that SRN Motorsports orange car, he was nearly 0.3 of a second faster than Stevie Amanatidis, the leader of the GTM class right now. So as long as that Daniel Gralti machine can keep up this pace, he's going to inevitably make that pass for the GTM lead and get that pole position for the 24 Hours of Daytona. There's another car coming in and out of pit road. This is where the alternate strategy is biting some of the drivers in this field. It's allowed for those guys to inevitably have to come in because they have no choice. They can't make it to the checkered flag. So all the blending just continues to get a bit more interesting now that we've got the switch. That was NX Martinez Sanchez, the World of Sim Racing team car that had to come in.
They can really start to see all the drivers that really thought there was going to be another safety car to be able to kind of bail them out of the fuel game, but that has not been the case for most. Blocco Motore, speaking of being under fire, their GT Pro entry just made the pass on Marco Pereira for the World of Sim Racing team, and now only 9/10 behind Joao Pedro Teixeira for Epic Vans Pulsar Esports team.
This is good racing. The strategy's kicking in, and just a quick note of what's happening in front. Felipe Sauter took the lead. That's because he had stayed out. Nicholas Peterson with Wastegate Racing had come in from the GTP overall lead. Now he's going to be second, and this is where the crossover point is going to begin. Felipe Sauter and this BMW M Team Delta Racing group, they're going to need a really good pit stop right now. Sauter is going to see Peterson come across the line. That's going to be the switch for the GTP and overall lead. It may be a really close merge point between those two cars. Peterson will have him in turn one, but Sauter will have the fresher tires, so the gap is manageable inside 9 minutes to go.
All right, game on for the GTP and overall lead of this race. Still got fights as well in LMP2 and a fight for 10th in GTM. between Tony Allison and Matthew Elia. Superstars Race Team Yellow trying to fight against off of the S's Racing, but that BMW powers around the outside of the McLaren and makes short work. Matthew Elia picks up a top 10.
And any track position you can gain at this juncture of the race, Nolan, is so crucial. It makes a big difference when you have one spot gained versus 0, because that one spot can really put you in a place where you can avoid trouble if something happens behind you, or in any case, to figure out where you're going to be on the double file start, and that makes a big difference inside or outside into this very treacherous turn 1, where the leader in GT Pro just nearly had a scare there off the corner, and the battle continues for second and third. A very close fight between all these guys right now. But again, all this for really crucial track position, especially in this GT Pro category, that from what we've seen in this Roar and what we're going to see next week, they're going to be some of the best racing we see throughout that day.
That's one of the Fisher Motorsports cars that is refusing to get out of the way of the lap cars behind, except for the prototype. Now, right now, Teixeira tried to fend off Ian Lawrence Brown. And I mentioned these guys have the chance to close in, and once again, the gap closes in dramatically between Brown and Teixeira. So the leader of GT Pro looking to be under fire for the final 5 or so laps of this race.
And any traffic faster LMP2 GTP that ends up in the mix in the corners, it's going to slow these guys down even more. Thankfully, this next prototype car is going to be catching them on the straightaway, so it's not like it's going to provide that big of a hamper so far for Teixeira and this 73 machine. But again, it's all down the final minutes. You think to yourself, I cannot overthink anything right now. I cannot cough up a mistake because it could be the end of the race. And Daniel Grolty, who was fighting for contention in GTM, a simple spin in the horseshoe. That's heartbreaking.
Well, the GT Pro lead continues to be one of contention. Twin Aston Martins fighting it out. The Corvette is fading, and it looks like it'll be some British power that might be looking to close this race out, but no move is made by either contender to turn 1. Ian Lawrence Brown biding his time, waiting for the moment to strike.
You know, I'd be curious to be Marco Pereira right now. That third place car, there's a spinner on pit road.
How in the world does that happen?
That's at the 68, Marco Silva. That was spun around. Well, that's an odd scenario right there on pit road. That's the final pit stop for a lot of these drivers. Oh, and there was a huge crash. I'm looking back at it now. There was a huge crash with Tyler Rubio and Aries Racing, and that's what caught that GT car. That's what sent him spinning into the grass, and that's how he spun. It was a sizable accident. I don't know how the caution is not out at the moment, but Tyler Rubio, Juca Tainio was in contention for GT lead, and it was a huge mess on the tri-oval.
Well, we'll try to get a look at that if we can, but for the time being, it's going to be quite the run. You said it was Aris Racing potentially that got involved in that?
Yeah, Tyler Rubio, the black and gold Porsche GTP, he was running down the straightaway. There was a really odd circumstance amongst LMP2 and GTP cars. Oliver Peterson was on the inside. Daniel Campos was the faster car trying to get around. He slams into the Aries Racing car. And I don't know if that was on purpose or not, because Rubio just slowed up. He hit the brakes on the straightaway.
Oh my good Lord. Oh, that is a horrible crash.
I think that might have been on purpose from Rubio. I think it was displeased with Campos. They were off NASCAR turn 4.
You think a brake check?
Brakes. Yeah, he brakes already. You see the lights come on at the exit of turn 4. I'm watching it right now. And then Campos has nowhere to go. He swerves out of the way. He tries to file the middle 3 wide. He saves the race car. And then Rubio slows down again. And then Campos just slams into the back of him. And then Tainio gets into it. Or Juca Tainio gets into it. And then that Silva car that we saw slipping through the grass was one that just barely got away. And I don't know how that didn't create a full course yellow inside 5 minutes ago. That was chaos.
Well, we'll get another look at that one post-race, but right now it's the final 4 minutes of the Roar Before the 24. The battles continue on with LMP2 traffic fighting out. Johannes Witt able to pick off Paolo Calvo for the battle for second place in the LMP2 category. 4 minutes are left to go. And right now, GTP looking to be uncontested for the lead. Same with LMP2 and GTM. Teixeira, the lone contender that's within a 1 second fight for their class lead.
You got to really dig deep, find whatever's working, and throw out whatever's not working right now in this battle for the GT Pro lead. You got to give credit to João Pedro Teixeira, the way he's been able to hold on through this race, and even with the pressure behind from Lawrence Brown, has not flinched a moment even as the faster traffic approaches and gets around them. Thankfully, it's been good placement for the most part in the infield road course, and this may be pretty much all she wrote as long as Teixeira can stay as consistent as ever. He's matching the lap times with Lawrence Brown in second place, so as long as that stays the way it is, I don't think really anything's going to change right now, and especially as Lawrence Brown is another second slower. It's going to allow that 73 machine to continue to pull away. Now's where everything is finally cycled into the longest green flag run we've had all day long. And Nolan, still some good battles out there on the racetrack, but when it comes down to the lead, I think the best drivers have already stepped out in front, and unless something dire happens, which we've seen so far today, wouldn't be surprised if it happened again, but if it doesn't, and we stay chaos-free, for the most part, these leaders have enough in the tank to keep on going and win.
And big stories, by the way. Rodrigo Marrero's coming to pit road, going to give up a lot of spots in GT Pro. Could not go the distance, and less than 3 laps from the end, GT Pro is going to be brought to a close, at least in the battle for the 6th place spot there. This fight for 4th in LMP2 right now, the closest one we have on the racetrack with 2 minutes on the clock.
That Corey Sercone car that was at one point in the top 3 in LMP2. Things have shifted so dramatically that they ended up in 5th. Chance to get one more good exit off the International Horseshoe to be a solid build-up to the next horseshoe and off the kink. Got a lot of good draft here, full throttle into this left-hand corner, and then just a dive deep on the brakes. And that's where the V1M machine is going to try to help Oliver Peterson flinch, maybe send him up the racetrack. There it is, crossover inside.
Close look as they're going to fight their way into turn number 7 and back out onto the oval. A good, solid drive, but Corey Cursone has got the run. Looking around the outside of Oliver Peterson. 1 minute on the docket. Potentially the final lap of these two when they get back around to the start-finish line. But right now, side by side in the chicane, that never works, and it's going to be Oliver Pedersen that holds on.
Oh, it was tough to the middle of the bus stop in the Le Mans chicane. He got right into the dirty air. He washed up a bit wide. It hurt the exit of the final 2 chicane hits, and that's going to hamper him just a little bit. Still some time to make that final move. And it's been a fantastic battle for 4th place in the LMP2 side, but what can you say about Nicholas Peterson, the way he's been able to step up several times in races exactly like these. And in the GTP category, should come around and get either the white flag or the checkered. I believe this race is going to end on this very lap, and Peterson just sailing into the sunset here in Daytona Beach.
Nicholas Pedersen took the win. He was able to bring Mayer Simspeed Performance to a win in 2024 of the Daytona 24. And this time out, he will be the one to put Wastegate Racing on pole position as Nicholas Pedersen rounds NASCAR 3 and 4. He wins the Roar before the 24 for GTP. Right behind them, Teixeira in a drag race with Lawrence Brown, but Teixeira going to hold on for a stellar win in GT Pro. Here comes Ryan Serlich, uncontested for the win in LMP2 and going racing. Looking like he could have an easy one here in GTM. And there's that fight for 4th.
No, it's not going to be that easy for going racing because Christian Malczarek is right there and he's got help.
Well, that's a pro car,
it could be a drag race to the line.
That's a pro car, though. There's 3 pro cars between Goen and Stevie Amantides for Bloco Motore. So we'll be going racing, taking the W here in GTM, and here's the fight to the line for 4th in the LMP2. The real drag race as V1M looking for the outside, can't get there, and Oliver Pedersen holds on for 4th.
Great finish with all those drivers. Great that they made it to this point, given how attrition-filled this race has been this afternoon. Credit to all of them for staying out as long as they did. Great racing for 4th place in LMP2. Nicholas Pedersen with the win in GTP and overall. And this is the aforementioned incident we saw between Campos and Rubio.
That is blatant on a brake check there, twice over, in fact. I mean, what even brought this about? I don't understand.
I don't know. It didn't look like there was any prior history between these two cars before this incident. It just was really awkward. And the way that Rubio had slowed down, Campos had made his way through, and Juca Tanyo, you got to feel for him. Had such a good race in his McLaren today. There's Silva, that silver McLaren sliding through the grass. That's that car that we saw that basically created the origin of the incident. From our investigation side of things, just looking at how it all unfolded.
Oh, man!
Hard hit to the inside pit wall.
And that's
a devastating crash.
Well, that's concrete down there, too, right? No safer barriers in pit road, because that's one of the things where you don't anticipate that to happen to you.
And again, it just made me question how there was no full course yellow. I mean, the decision probably was to just let them race into the end. But, I mean, this was a sizable accident. Several cars in the middle of the racing line. And it was just, I mean, that's the exclamation point on what's been a chaos-filled afternoon. And it's just tough for all those drivers. Campos, I mean, had a solid race. Rubio had a solid race. Jugo Tanyo a solid race. All of that for naught. Heavily damaged cars at this checkered flag.
Several contenders encountering problems of their own, but what a fight that we had to the end of this one. Let's take a rundown of your official post-race results here at the end of the night. It was a wild race that we saw here this afternoon, but a hard-earned race win at that. Taking home the #1 spot, it's going to be Nicholas Pedersen for VSCA Racing. He is alongside Felipe Sonner, and then it is Adex Martinez Sanchez back in 3rd. Mark Skirschel in 4th, Gabriel Peckley in 5th, Alan Paris for Pac Simsport. The dominant car in GTP having a rough ending to their night. They will finish 6th, and that is where they will start in the Daytona 24. Seth Neufeld back in 7th, Daniel Campos in 8th, Samuel Aragon in 9th, Tyler Rubio in 10th, and then it is Ollie Schwartz and Thomas Martin to close out the field in GTP.
In LMP2, it starts with Ryan Surlick, who's going to have the pole in LMP2 next Saturday. Johannes Witt with a great finish for rescue skill by WMS, the 512. That was actually penalized before this race began. They end up 2nd place in their category. Paulo Calvo for Flight Level Racing, 757, flies its way to 3rd, with the Oliver Pedersen car for Fury Simsport ending up in 4th place. Corey Cerconi for V1M, a strong LMP2 performance for that team today, but they end up in the top 5. Luis Suarez in the Monarch Racing team entry. Man, they flipped the strategy several times this race. They made things very interesting. They end up with 6th place. Michael Williams for Track Limit Sim Racing Thunderbolt is in 7th. Ruben Pino in 8th. Adam Joseph Malahan in 9th. Afonso Reyes, who was the leader, the pole sitter of this roar before the 24 in LMP2, after a spin in turn 1, could not recover for the RTR RIC Team Racing Group.
Back then in GT Pro, it's going to be Joao Pedro Teixeira just barely holding on by 0.4 of a second for the GT Pro win. Ian Lawrence Brown brings home a solid 2nd place. Jack Hedgecock's in 3rd. Carson Allen in 4th. Marco Pereira back in 5th. Christian Malcheri brings it home in 6th for Matco Fisher Motorsports. Doubleton Racing back in 7th with iRacing today. Motorsport, the VSCA's Chad Dalton brings it home in 8th. Another RTR car back in 9th with Virtual Power Sim Racing rounding out the top 10. And then out through the field, it's Juan Figueroa Correa, Aaron Beaver, Marco Silva, Aero Urixoy, and Juno Magalhaes with Juca Tainio, a car that was fighting up at the front in that last stint, finishing back of the pack, 3 laps down.
And that 112 ended up in that huge crash that we saw the replay right after the finish. Then the finishing order for GTM, Nicholas going for Go Win Racing. The 19 car ends up with the pole-sitting spot at the 24 Hours of Daytona next week. Stevie Amanatidis gave it a shot in the 283 for Blocco Motore, and that was great battle for the lead at the end of that race, but just kind of stifled out at the end. Daniel Gralty had a spin near the end of the race, but recovers for third for SRN Motorsports Orange. Jason Brothers, the 94 for SWF Motorsports, is fourth, with Samuel Hoff, the Superstar Racing Team number 17, ends up in the top 5. Matthew Alia for the Off and the S's Racing Team, their P6. John Goodwin in the SRN TFR Alliance car in 7th. Jason Ketty for Flight Level Racing, 747 is in 8th. Jesse Molina in 9th for BMW M-Team TSR GTM. And the Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing Group will see Janoff Gebhardt in the 515 there in 10th. Jim McGill in 11th, Jordan Strant for Intercom Fisher Motorsport in 12th, Tony Allison, Vanis Constantin, and Neil A. Forbes for Wastegate Racing, going to be the final of the 15 cars that made it through GTM today.
Quite the ride that we had here this afternoon. Let's give a chit chat in here with some of your class winners here at the end of the night, and we'll look to kick things off first and foremost with the drivers that finished this race number 1 in the GTP category. It is Nicholas Pedersen, who is going to walk away with a stellar race win here this afternoon. The driver that won the Daytona 24 in 2024 is going to be coming home number 1 in the Roar. Nicholas, a new team for you, but that car still showing a lot of success for you in your career.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very good way to start the year, definitely.
Kind of talk us through this race here today, because boy, this race it was a hard-fought battle that you guys had here all throughout the day, and could not have been easy to wrestle that car to a win.
No, definitely there was quite a few incidents, quite some time under caution, which kind of let's say neutralized the race a little bit, and yeah, then the last hour. It's just about setting everything up for that final pit stop that we could, hopefully keep the track position and bring it home.
Kind of talk us through then what's going to be the game plan for the Daytona 24. Obviously, this race was very attrition-filled. How are you going to be able to survive for 24 hours and potentially win the most prestigious race of the year?
Just do what we've done in the past. So not worry too much about the first, let's say, 15, 16 hours or so, and just try and bring ourselves in a position where we can hopefully be in position to bring the fight for the win at the end of the race.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck when we return to racing action next time out. Congratulations on taking home a solid drive here this afternoon, Nicholas, and we'll see you next week for 24 hours.
Thank you very much.
Nicholas Pedersen comes home number 1 here at the end of the day for Wastegate Racing. And Kenneth, you're going to be standing by with the winners here, coming home with a solid drive in LMP2, the twin twin turn SR-V by Rebecca Bornheim, as you've caught up with some of our LMP2 winners here.
Ryan Serlich was the winner of the LMP2 class. I believe we don't see his name in the waiting room voice chat right now, so I don't know if we'll be able to get a wide word with him at the end of this thing, but several great drivers in the midst of that race, and I believe we may end up trying to catch up with the GTM winner, Nicholas Goen, for Goen Racing, and the 19 machine ends up with the dub in the category. Nicholas, I mean, this was a wild race in the GT category, a wild race overall, to say the least, but given in the GTM and GT Pro categories, lots of changes in the final leg of this event. What did you see, and how were you able to capitalize in those final few laps?
Yeah, it was definitely a little chaotic. Connor Boating, our second driver, he was able to keep it is in one piece pretty much the whole first half of the race, and leading up to the that final leg, we realized it was going to be close on fuel. So just from the very get-go, we decided just to save and not push and just see if we can get close to the end. Whereas like other cars around us, it looked like they had to dip off last second, or they dipped off earlier. But yeah, it was close. So just happy to finish where we are, and Connor did a great job.
It seemed very clear from the start that this race really just became all about survival for you guys and for Connor. I mean, you guys had put in the show and getting around all these full course yellows. How did you manage to stay in rhythm and stay focused even through all of the stoppages in today's event?
Well, I I had Nick in my ear, keeping me calm, but I did throw us a bit of a curveball when I missed my pit box during one of the full course, and as a result, we couldn't pit again because the pits were closed. But I think it was from that point onwards we started to think that we had to do something a bit different to get a result.
Well, you guys end up with the GTM win, 24 hours next week, much longer than the one we have this weekend. Nicholas, Connor, what do you guys think is going to be the biggest mindset when the 24 hours kick off next week from now?
Much like what we did today. I mean, that's the thing with these races is I mean, especially with the caveat being the full course yellows and throwing a roll of the dice into the mix, if you will. It's just staying out of trouble and not picking up incident points and staying away from other cars and not taking, like, mitigating risk is the short way of saying that.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Yeah, if it was that chaotic for a 2-hour, 40-minute race today, then keeping out of trouble next weekend is the main objective, with it being so much longer. So yeah, I agree.
Well, it's going to be a long one next week, but it's going to be very exciting. I think all of us excited to kick off this 2026 VSCA Sports Car Championship here in great fashion. Nicholas, Connor, congratulations on the GTM win in the Roar Before the 24, pole sitting spot for the main race next week. Best of luck, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Nicholas Gowen, Connor Botting.
And well, with all of that, we'll be able to catch up now with the LMP2 contenders here, as it's going to be Dominic Eisenberg coming home. He is the driver that takes the race win in LMP2 alongside Ryan Serlig here for Twin Turn SR-V. And Dom, what a wild ride that you guys had here this afternoon. That race was something else entirely. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I don't really know what happened around until I got out of the car, so I just need to catch up after the race. But it was still quite boring to be behind the pace car for so long. But yeah, just try to be efficient on fuel and not taking any risk. And that got pretty far to the end, and then just Ryan got in, got spun, and delivered. Closed the gap again and overtook for the win. It was great stuff.
It may not be a point scoring race, but this does put you guys in a very critical position on being able to be at the head of the field for the LMP2 category come the Daytona 24. Is that going to be a big help to you guys in your strategy next week, or what's going to be the game plan now that you're starting up front?
I think it's just helpful to not be in the mix and have the chance to drive away instead of trouble getting caught in some other incidents. Like I had today, I needed to avoid a few spins at the race start and the first restart, I think. And yeah, just not being in the mix and staying out of trouble will be good to establish a good position.
Season-long goals, is the LMP2 championship in line of sight for Twin Turn SR-V this season?
Yes, last season we just try to keep it clean and defend our title, maybe getting all 3 titles this season in. That will be the overall goal, but yeah, just having fun and staying clean is what we try to do this season again.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck then when we go racing next time out. Congratulations on taking home #1 in LMP2, and we'll see you when we go racing next week for 24 hours.
Yes, thank you very much.
And that was Dominic Eisenberg, one of the drivers that comes home #1 for LMP2. And then it is Joao Pedro Teixeira coming home #1 in GT Pro. He is standing by with Kenneth.
Here with Joao Pedro Teixeira. Portuguese team ends up with the win here in GT Pro. I'd imagine, I mean, since you guys won the 2024 championship in GT Pro here for the 24 Hours of Daytona, this was a team that was going to be dead set on being back at the front of things. For you guys, how did it all shape out, especially in that final leg where things were really shaping up in that GT Pro category?
Yeah, I mean, we have a history already here, so we know what to do and when to do. The start was not that great. The qualifying was not as expected, but we had our strategy and it worked out. Unfortunately, we also had some repairs to do, but eventually we defined multiple times and redefined the strategy multiple times across the race, and at the end it worked out. So yeah, I mean, I think it worked out pretty well. In the end, the guys were behind. We were saving fuel like crazy because we knew that we didn't had to stop. And we were not expecting Bloco to be that close also to us with a lot of fuel. But yeah, on the final laps, we pushed to try and see if we can keep the gap. And yeah, at the end, it worked out everything well.
The great thing about endurance racing is that you constantly have to adapt to different strategies and different track temperatures, different track conditions. For you guys, it was very much no different in this race. How important is this roar for the 24, and how important is this race now in hindsight that you guys have the pole position and you guys can take notes and learn for that 24-hour race next week?
Yeah, of course, strategy-wise, it's always constantly changing, and you need to come to the race with multiple strategies possible, and that's what we did. We studied before the strategy, and this was only 2 hours and 40 minutes, so for the 24 hours, we will have even more things to look out. But at the end, starting from pole position, it's not always good, because you get the draft behind, so you can start savings pretty much since the beginning of the race. But we'll see. We need to think about what possible outcomes can we have from this pole position. And yeah, let's see if we can bring also the P1 for the 24 hours.
Building up the game plan, though, I love it. Joel, congratulations on you and your team winning the GT Pro category here in the Roar before the 24. Congratulations on now being the pole sitter for the Makoni Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona. We'll see you in the team next time out.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the sponsors, and thank you for VSCA to have this championship as well. Thank you.
João Pedro Teixeira for the Epic Vents Pulsar Esports team ends up with the GT Pro win. Nolan, class of winners, lots of guys with different opinions on what the pole sitting perspective is going to look like next week, but I'm sure them and everyone else learned a ton after today's event.
It's going to be quite the race when we go racing once again next week. But before we get to all of that, there's still more action yet to come. But I tell you what, this race was something, right? I mean, yes, a lot of it was run under the full course yellow, but what racing we had really speaks volumes of the type of racing we can have. And I feel like we're going to be in for a stellar race when we go at it again in a week's time.
Could not agree with you more. Just because this race was littered with several full course yellows and several incidents that took drivers out of this race should not be reflective of what this field is capable of, what these drivers are capable of as well. These races happen in any given group. Even the best of the best happen with races like these. So to roll before the 24 is just another learning opportunity for all these teams and all these drivers. And, you know, like the Pulsar Esports team and Teixeira just said, they plan multiple strategies for this race alone in 2 hours and 40 minutes. You can only imagine what the game plan is going to be look like. Much more expansive for the 24 hours of Daytona. Overall, fun afternoon. Great chance for these drivers to get some seat time together. And that 24-hour race is just rapidly approaching. That week is going to go by very fast.
But before we get to that, all of the races that are yet to come, it kicks off tonight at the Talladega Super Speedway, where we'll be racing once again with the SRA Super Speedway Blitz alongside the High Tide Racing League. They will be out at the Kansas Speedway this coming Monday. PSR Winter Series is back for more for the Winter Series. And then, of course, the Zero Torque Racing League kicks off the round of 16 in the playoffs at the Iowa Speedway. Then next week, it is 24 hours straight of racing at the Daytona International Speedway for the Makoni Setup Shops Daytona 24. Once again, if you want to find out more about who we are and what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenflag.tv. Boy, this race had everything in it tonight. It had the thrills, the spills, and everything in between. My name is Nolan Remble alongside Kenneth Bueno. We'll see you all next week where we go race for 24 hours at Daytona.